everybody? Welcome back to the Project Manga Podcast, where we cover One Piece, My Hero, Black Clover, Mashle, Dr. Stone, and Jujutsu Kaisen week to week. Back this week covering Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 48. I'm your host, Eagle.
Knox.
And I'm Melianis.
And as always, before we get started, we would ask that you take a look in that description box down below where you can find links to any and all of our individual social media accounts such as Twitter, online communities such as Discord, whatever audio listening platform you listen to podcasts on regularly, you can find us there. The link will be there. As well as ways to support the podcast such as our Patreon or our online store.
Yes.
And while you're down there, slap a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more weekly fire-ass content. And yeah, with all those... Oh, also timestamps to conveniently navigate the video and avoid segments for series you're not caught up in yet. Mm-hmm. Always fucking forget that part. With that said... How are y'all feeling about this week in Jump? Short week.
Short, yeah.
In
Brief.
Jump.
Short but sweet.
Yeah. 4 chapters.
Sweet.
No Jujutsu Kaisen, no Mashle.
Jujutsu or Mashle. No Jujutsu hurts, but I feel like a lot happened.
Yeah.
A lot happened in everything else, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we might as well just get right into it.
Yeah.
Chapter 216 of Dr. Stone, Hello World.
Yes.
Which, this chapter title really brought me back to the original opening for the anime.
Oh, Good Morning World?
Ohio, Sekai, Good Morning World!
Yeah.
Yo, that's fire, bro.
Yeah, it does kind of, yeah, now that you mention it, it does remind me of that. I mean, hello and good morning are a little bit different, but I feel like that's still, I feel like that's still a play on that song, potentially.
A nod to it.
Or a nod to it, rather, yeah.
I mean, was that song, Good Morning Starshine, The World Says Hello?
I don't know that song. Who's that?
I don't remember off the top of my head, to be honest. I know it's referenced... I thought it was referenced in Willy Wonka, to be honest.
Oh, damn.
One second.
Could be a thing.
Yeah, but we start the chapter back off pretty much with Senku and Zeno kind of doing their thing, and then Chrome realizing that this shit is no easy task, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I thought I mentioned something about him trying to like really study the way that they're doing things and like derive a way to create the rocket that they're trying to based on what they're doing.
Right.
Which is pretty much exactly what he's doing. He's like, we got to study all the shit they're doing, you know, all these minute adjustments they're making, like what went wrong, what did they have to fix, what did they have to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it still just doesn't feel like a possible task.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you guys. So, like, what do you think they're doing? You think that they're trying to build their two-way vessel by the time that Senku and them finish their one-way vessel, so that he can say, "Yo, you guys were working on that. We were working on this. We got the two-way joint ready. Like, let's use this one instead." Or do you guys think that they're gonna go in the one-way rocket? And then they'll come pick them up on the two-way, like way sooner than
they petrify themselves.
What'd you say?
So what if like Senku goes with the one-man rocket?
Mm-hmm.
I think we touched about it on a couple earlier episodes.
Oh, maybe.
But like Senku goes up in the one-way rocket with his team. They defeat Y-Man, and then they petrify themselves. And then the group builds the two-way rocket to pick them up.
Oh yeah.
And like I thought that would be like a really nice like ending to a series, because it's like, hey, you know, it's not all about the one person, it's not about the person that invented it. Science is about inheriting knowledge and like working on it, improving on that, layering it, and then just like the idea of the people that were taught and learned under these people were able to save the heroes was like a very satisfying concept to me.
I feel like that might take away from like some of the stakes of like the moon trip, actually, though, because it's like if Chrome and Suika are chilling here back on Earth, and we know that they've been working on this two-way rocket the entire time, we know that they're going to eventually figure it out, or at least we can safely assume that. So if they go up on one rocket and leave Chrome and Suika behind, then we know that no matter like what really goes down, there'd have to be hella subversions actually on the moon. Because it's like, if it's that predictable, the course of events, then I feel like that doesn't make for a good final arc, because it's like, it's so obvious that they'll go up there, beat Y-Man, get petrified, and then Chrome will pull up on his two-way rocket, like, right after the fact, or shortly after the fact, And then it's
I
like
was thinking
we
like
already.
a long time after the fact.
I think
like
it could.
Chrome's
Yeah,
an
I
old
was.
man.
Yeah, I was thinking like,
Okay.
how
Oh
fire would it
wow.
be if the last panel of the series is like literally Senku opening eyes from the petrification to
Yeah.
see like a 60 or a 50, 60-year-old Chrome. You know what I'm
That'd be
saying?
Yeah.
insane. But I feel
And
like that's yeah.
he's like, yo, science user Chrome,
Yeah.
you got here quicker than I expected.
Hey,
You know
I
what I'm
could see
saying?
that though. I could.
In one lifetime, a
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
stone world like science user, quote unquote, but
Yeah.
like glorified fucking, magician
Yeah.
still kind of. He's got a lot of knowledge, but like as far as applying that knowledge, like
Yeah.
really Kaseki and Senku are the ones building most of the shit like we talked about. He definitely has built some shit. Like I'm not trying to disrespect Chrome, but
Yeah, for sure.
as far as building a fucking rocket,
I do think
it's gonna take him a while.
it should take him a while. I can totally see that line of dialogue happening the exact way that you just kind of painted it, but I feel like that's literally the exact kind of situation that Chrome is trying to avoid by building this ship. Because like that's what Senku originally said. He's like, we're three of us are gonna go up there, beat Y-Man, and then get petrified until somebody else can build a fucking rocket, come pick us up, and then, de-petrify us with liquid or whatever. And everyone was talking about how long that would take, and like Gen doesn't want to see that happen and have them be on the moon for 50 years. You know what I mean? Like Chrome is working as diligently as
I
he
think
is
the
right
implication was like hundreds of years until
Oh,
somebody
sure.
can act. Like I don't think he was. I think he was implying like in none of your lifetimes will you ever see me again.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
That was more the vibes I took from it because like most of these people aren't building a rocket. Senku's really the one out here flexing.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think that is exactly what they said, is that it'll take so long to come up here and build another rocket and come pick us up that I will never see any of you guys again, and obviously that's what no one wants. So if Chrome figures it out with Suika over the course of like an extremely long amount of time, but still inside of their lifetime, then that slaps pretty hard. Plus that would put Chrome on like such a new level of appreciation, being stone born and in your lifetime achieving the final
man to the moon,
the literal final invention of the like wild genius
century.
That like Senku is like 17 Einsteins or some shit, you know what I mean? Like and he had all of that time in the modern world to kind of cook and and bring himself to the point that he's at. So to bring a stone world individual up to the point where you can build a return rocket to come pick you up from that final arc would be insane for Chrome's character. Absolutely. I think that might be like the way that it kind of tries to go. But at the same time, Dr. Stone has been so good on the unpredictable side of things throughout its entire series. So I just can't see the final stretch of storytelling being that easy to kind of just figure out, you know what I mean? So that's why I was saying there's got to be like hella subversions actually on the moon. But like I just don't want it with one conversation for the entire like course of that stretch of storytelling.
Just have it completely encapsulated.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Riichiro is really good at like playing with expectations a bit, and like being able to find tension in places that one wouldn't expect. Like they're not beholden to the genre to draw from like a lot of the familiar archetypes to create tension.
Right.
Part of me wonders if they'll have a point where like the group will have like, hey, as a community, we want you to hold the fuck up and wait till we have a two-way rocket.
Right.
Because you're one of us. Like, don't throw yourselves away. We're not gonna, like, you didn't leave any of us behind. You brought back so many people from petrification, modern world, stone world alike. Like, you came back for us. We want to come back for you. So, like, don't, like, have that kind of tension of will and them being, like, talked out of, like, going to the one-way death trip to the moon, right?
Yeah, like, suicide mission.
And I feel like that would be impactful, too, because I feel like, it's hard to argue against good intentions.
Right.
And so, like, I could see, like, a lot of tension happening that way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, me too.
I like that the rocket, Senku number 7, is the one that manages to, like, get there without breaking. It's like, lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like little shit like that Dr. Stone does. There's probably, like, And I'm even like rereading Dr. Stone a little bit, or I have been over the last couple of months, and just like seeing all the little like in between the lines shit that Riichiro and Boichi like just like stuffed in there for anybody who cared enough about their story to find is just like beautiful. Like I love that about like certain stories. I don't have any real examples off the top of my head right now, but I just like thought about that inside of a story like Dr. Stone where they fit so much inside of every page. You know what I mean? So many different characters have to exist in one chapter, and so much storytelling has to happen for each of them and the overarching plot that like a lot of that like visual stuff kind of gets lost in the sauce. But I just remembered like inside of a translator note in the gutter of like a chapter they talked about fucking Quap in the Treasure Island arc, like in regard to
punching in
for the drone. Yeah, for the drone. It had 4 levers, you know what I mean? 2 on the left, 2 on the right. He's like kind of like Quap, and I was like, oh my god, like like the fucking like track and field like muscle simulator like or whatever for like thighs and like you know and shins or whatever, like that throwback ass Flash game. Yeah, just like little shit like that. Yeah. I think I actually brought that up recently in these reviews, but I just love little shit like that in Dr. Stone.
Man, I wonder if that game's still out there or floating around on like Internet Arcade or like Newgrounds or some shit. Just like
I don't know about Newgrounds, but if you Google Quap, like you could play it right now. Like I just played it like the other day when I read that chapter. Yeah, like nice. Quap's definitely still a thing. I got like 7 meters. I think I got to 7 meters before I gave up on it. But yeah, Quap was some shit.
This chapter had so many double spreads.
It did.
I'm for it. I feel like it definitely felt like condensed the thing, but like you said earlier, Dr. Stone is so good at condensing so many things. It's almost like not on the level of like a Where's Waldo, but it is like a lot of information all at once. I feel like that's just kind of in keeping with the theme of the series.
Right. It's honestly like so impressive how Boichi is able to have the pages breathe enough despite that, you know what I mean? Like there's so much in every page, in every chapter, but like I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it can feel a little cluttered, but like by and large, like he knows how to let the pages breathe despite that, you know what I mean? So that's
like
really
5 pages until the like title intro into a double spread, like I think that's pretty solid. Like you managed to like, you know, fit in the equivalent of like 5 more years of Rockets at least.
Yeah,
maybe
like
8 years worth of Rockets. Just like boom, 5 pages, boom, 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 let's go. I do agree because like 6 and 7 kind of feel cluttered, and sort of like 8 and 9, but like the 10 and 11 spread was really nice. I like that because like I'm a big nerd for like fictional landscaping, like geography.
The geographical change really was interesting. To me.
Seeing 58th century in text form was like insane. Like even Gen said it. He's like, we knew that already, but like, you know, still like seeing it like now that we're talking about it, like that's wild. Like we went from the 20th century, 21st century to the 58th. You know what I mean? Like that's wild
like
to see
seeing,
that.
Like a trillion grains of rice.
Yeah.
Right. To like I saw a guy do that to like explain like the difference between like 100, 1,000, a billion, a million, $1 trillion, and it's like it's just grains of rice, and I'm like, fuck, that's a lot. Like
holy shit.
You're right. My brain literally cannot fathom that size.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's insane to think. I think I saw somebody say one time, like if you wanted to spend $1 billion, and let's say you like spent like $10,000 a day every day, like you wouldn't even come close to spending the entirety of that money in your lifetime, your kid's lifetime, or your grandkid's lifetime, or something.
$10,000 a day.
That's insane to think about.
Yeah, that
just makes you look at, like, if that's true, like I haven't done the math on it. It sounds right. I'm not a numbers guy, but like if that's true,
I can't fathom numbers that size.
Makes you look at billionaires like so much differently in the world.
I mean, shit, like $10,000 is like a life-changing amount of money, and like
for a
people
lot of
don't
people
get that unless they like get like a fucking inheritance, like a rich relative dies.
Yeah, $10,000 at once is not $10,000 in one day is not a very common thing.
I mean,
for a lot of people.
You're right. I could do 20,000.
What's the math? You doing the
really
math?
hard.
What's it say? What's the math say?
I mean, 1,000, like, a billion is like 1,000 millions, right? So, like, if you take 1,000,000 divided by 10,000, that's only 100 days. So, I would figure around 10,000 days you could spend $10,000 a day, and before you ran through the billion.
Sure.
Which is,
I'm like looking up like 10,000 times 365, and then so that gives you like $3,650,000. So
27 years you could spend $10,000 a day before you ran through a billion.
Okay, so then
27 years.
I don't
barely
think I
that
was,
old.
Yeah, I don't think I was anywhere near the mark on that. But it was some crazy. Maybe I'm just not saying the stat right then, or something.
Maybe I got
No
my
worries.
math a little off, but that's how it seems to me based
No,
on the
that
math
feels
I'm
right.
doing.
That feels right. If anybody's ever heard of that, like $10,000 a day thing, like let me know how I fucked up on that. But I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. but yeah, man. Fucking
Satellite looks fucking dope.
Yeah,
Way more modern than I thought it would.
Oh,
well, the first satellite comes out, and it's like a lot of the
basics.
a lot of the stuff is kind of like hidden by the solar panels. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get like the big one, you know, on 12 and 13, the actual space telescope or whatever.
The big rig.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's definitely got a lot of solar panels on it as well. But yeah, the design does look a lot more modern than anything else that they've built. But I mean, like, what's the Stone World version of this? Like, this is science that's so top level and so advanced that you can't make a Stone World version of this.
They're
like,
using actual
You can't do
modern
Flintstones your way
alloys,
through
you
this.
know?
Like you have a hydroelectric dam creating energy for you guys. Like you're past that point. Oh man, like I love the tiny details. Like page 1213, they have the Perseus India, the Perseus Spain. I like when they throw they throw Senku in the air from the deck of the ship, because they're just like, we did it.
We don't have any Gatorade, but we could throw you in the air.
Woo!
Yeah, I love that. Just little like subtle shit like that. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's so in between the lines. Like how many people even notice that? Probably a lot. But like I could see that going unnoticed. Like they're literally like throwing him in the air on a tiny sliver panel in a double spread.
Yep.
Little shit like that. I love that shit, bro.
Man, like the coral reefs like being added to Australia.
Yeah.
I was like, nature's healing. Love that stuff.
I know, right?
And you needed the science consultant, Kurare. Love them. They're always referenced. But like they had to put that on the page that's talking about how all of these things would change, over 3,700 years time. You know what I mean? You got to make sure.
Activity.
Yeah, you got to make sure that's accurate. So you're not just like saying like fictional fantasy stuff about how long time has passed. Like, yeah, a couple countries melded into each other because it's been 3,700 years. It's like, would that actually happen? Karare will let us know. This is probably how these things would actually react, given the circumstances, 3,700 years in the future.
I was just going to say the majority of Africa's deserts are now savannas and forests.
Fire.
Hell
yeah, I liked the whole Yellowstone exploding after all this time, because like you get like Mount St. Helens and stuff like that, and I think it's always interesting. It's like we have cities at the bases of a lot of volcanoes where it's just like, this is not going to be here in like 300 years.
Yeah. And a lot of things probably would have lasted longer if there was any kind of like, manpower keeping it sustained, obviously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know.
I was wondering, like, what fucking mountain range are they talking about in America? The Gallatin Mountains?
Oh, Galatian?
Galatian? But it looks like it's there where the Rockies are. Kinda.
Yeah. It's a mountain range inside of the Rocky Mountains.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't even think about mountain ranges inside of mountain ranges. That's got to be a thing.
No, the
obviously.
Rockies is so big.
Never thought about that before.
It spans 2 continents.
Stupid big.
Yeah, that makes makes all the sense in the world.
2 fucking countries.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it's always weird to see perspective because like it turns out like Belgium can fit in like side of like places as big as Connecticut or something like that.
Holy shit.
Right? I mean, I don't know because like
Yeah.
at the same time, I know that our maps are actually like the wrong size and proportion.
Mm.
They are taught like we are actively taught in a different way. Like,
But still, like getting those perspectives about like how big things actually are, like how many of one thing that you know is already huge can fit inside of another thing that you never thought about how
so
huge
much of
was.
Europe can fit inside Texas.
Right, like shit like that. Like if you watch
Stupid stuff.
you watch the original Cosmos documentary with Carl Sagan and he talks about the cosmic calendar. You know what I mean? And like universe is 14.5 billion years old or whatever. And then like if you put that inside of a calendar, you know what I mean? Like from January 1st to December 31st, everything humanity has done, when you put it to scale, occupies the last second of December 31st.
Yeah.
11:59 and 59 seconds. That's the last second is everything that humanity has ever done in the entire time that they've existed. That's wild.
Damn.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Blows your mind.
Perspective
But like,
is some shit.
yeah. Speaking of perspective, Kohaku has crazy eyesight. Like, I know that
Yeah.
she was supposed to be like a superhuman kind of like person, but like they're like, yeah, they spotted an oil patch from like a single photograph, and I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah, like what's her
That's
vision? It's like not 2020, it's like 20 and then like 1.5 or some shit. they legitimately
20+.
Yeah, hold on one second. Kohaku's vision.
But I also like that idea that like that's actually touching on it. Like that's a small like storytelling thing that implies a lot more going on in the background. Like just a small thing, and it's just a little small thing that like implies a lot of information, and it's just like perfect. That's how they're just compressing a ton of storytelling.
Bro, that's hilarious. I looked up like Kohaku's vision in Google and like I went to this search result. That was like 6 amazing things you need to know about Kohaku, and like all of the images related to each point is just like, you know, I guess not every single one. They've got some Boichi drawings in here. But I like, well, no, like I get to like number 1, she's an amazing fighter, and it's just like borderline like hentai drawing of Kohaku, and it's like, dude, there's so many drawings you can just grab from the manga. Like, why do you need like
they knew what they
why
were
do you need
doing.
like big titty, like superfluously round ass like fan art to like talk about how good of a fighter she is? Yeah,
we're in the click business. Suck cells, baby. It ain't a clean game, but it's the game we're in.
That's
you know,
hilarious.
I don't know, man. Like it's hard to. People are crazy.
Yeah.
No,
I really want to get the. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Keep going.
The moon base being in like the shadow of the crater on the moon.
Yes.
And I was like, ah, nice, hidden in plain sight, intrusive. And then like on the big spread, like 1819, it has the Y-Man always had like 2 rows of teeth.
Yes.
Okay, I was just like, man, that's creepy.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been there the entire time, but I had to double check, you know?
It's just like, how can we make the representation of like an entity that we know almost nothing about, but only know through their imposing, you know what I mean, like ominous, like presence. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, how do we represent that in imagery? And it's just giant, creepy skull with like multiple rows of teeth.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's straight up the uncanny valley. Like it's really well done. Just like, hey, how can we creep you out and with the least amount of details as possible?
Right.
Go. Double teeth. Ugh, you're right. That's kind of gross.
Right. I'm like so mad that I can't get the actual like legitimate like reading on Kohaku's eyesight, like from the chapter or episode.
I hate the clickbait.
Yeah, like I'm just you see it, yeah.
No, it's that comic book like CBR. I'm just like, no,
Oh,
why are
no,
you
no, no,
like
no, no, no,
this?
no, no. Yeah, get out of here.
I see too many of those things. I'm like, I don't even like read any of the articles anymore. I'm like, okay, I'll find like a good Twitter thread or something like that. But I'm just like, meh.
Hit me in the comments though. Like anybody who remembers or like wants to take the time to like
Please.
research that, like tell us exactly what Kohaku's vision is because it was something drastic as fuck, like 20 slash like 1.5 or something insane like that. So
That's human evolution.
yeah. Yeah, for real.
I mean, yeah, that's like straight up humanity after so many years, as so many generations going, going, going. That's
Right.
evolution, straight up.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh
Absolutely.
man.
I don't know if I had anything else for Dr. Stone this week though.
No, I think
Honestly,
you
they
guys
just
covered
put
the
so
main points.
much in so little, and it's just like, man, bam, 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 but like really cool stuff, hard hitting, like
Absolutely. Can't
the
wait for the
story's
next one.
accelerating.
Because like all of these, like, you know what I mean, as much of that happens in these Dr. Stone chapters until we get to the moon, they all feel like setup chapters. Even though like
Yeah,
hella character arcs are being, like kind of like delved into, and like all of this like other extra shit is like happening, and they're achieving accomplishments, and like
I
all of these
wonder what they're gonna
inventions are
loop back
happening.
to first.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point too.
If they're gonna loop back to
Yeah.
anything, are
Yeah.
they going to be like, hey, I believe I'm going on a one-way ticket and I'm never gonna see you guys again. I want to resolve these things before I go.
That's a good one.
Like the idea is like I can't go and die in space with the regrets
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I feel like that might be an arc that might pop up, and then like the clash of just like, hey, give us time to do the two-way rocket.
I wonder if they're going to like start the trip to space, and then because all of that storytelling can be wrapped up pretty quickly, especially if Y-Man is actually AI, you know what I mean? Then like what kind of, what kind of storytelling can we really expect once they actually get to the moon if the dude's just a sentry turret? You know what I mean? So thinking about that, and obviously Riichiro
Mr. House.
Riichiro can do like whatever the fuck he wants, you know what I mean? And like that, and it'll all be fire. But just based on the information that we're kind of going off of right now, with the theory that Y-Man is just a robot, you know what I mean? That doesn't really have its own, motivations or sentience even, you know what I mean? Like if we're going off that, that makes me think that the actual like moon-based storytelling won't be like all that crazy. There are a lot of things that have to be tied up in the actual story of Dr. Stone. I want to assume, as far as the characters are concerned, like you could very easily just like wrap everything up inside of like camaraderie and accomplishments, and not delve into anyone's like personal story like all too much as far as wrapping things up in their character goes. But like I'm thinking maybe they go to the moon and then take, some time to give us some introspective stuff related to the characters that are still on Earth before they
like
go
an
back.
epilogue
Yeah,
series.
yeah, or maybe just like, now that they're going to the moon, everybody else is going to get like super crazy character driven stuff like back here on the moon or on Earth, and then we go back to the moon and like wrap everything up and then do some epilogue stuff. But it could also just be a situation where it's like, split storytelling, you know what I mean, like as far as like plot points go, like you have moon plot, Earth plot, both going back and forth throughout the next however many chapters until the series concludes. It could be a situation like that. That's probably more it's probably more likely, just considering like the history of like shonen storytelling at this point in the game. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, and
Man,
yeah, you never know. You know what I mean? But like, it could go one of two ways logically. I want to say, yeah.
I have this like little bit of like a scene in my head that kind of popped up recently that like I think that like when they get to the moon base, there's no dialogue, and it's just them walking through halls, checking things out, and then like the first line of dialogue is like the Y-Man,
Yeah.
like on the last page or something like that. And
that would be
then
crazy if they'd went like no dialogue with it, because it's like that, like kind of has to do with like the emptiness of like space, you know what I mean, and like vacuums and whatnot. It's like no sound,
the vacuum, the horror of the unknown.
Yeah,
like,
you know what I mean. If they go on the moon and there's just like no dialogue for like 90% of a chapter until they like find the Y-Man base like location, and then there's from that point on, it's just like, you know, internal monologues of like what people are thinking. I'm assuming they're going to have some way to communicate with each other inside of their astronaut
I think
suits.
they're going to have an intercom system. I think
some kind of shit.
I
like
mean,
that.
at this point, they have to, because they can beam the visuals from a satellite. They can make an intercom system.
Yeah, for sure. But that would still be crazy. Like that would be chilling as hell. Like if just for the like theater of it, you know what I mean? Like there's just a dialogue
just for the moment, because like I feel like
no dialogue chapter for the most part.
I worry about series that like build up and they have their ending and they don't let it breathe. They never let like the endings breathe, and I was like, oh man, that was a huge climax. That took 15 pages. And then the climax is over. Okay, was it good for you too? Like, thanks for sticking around for 2 years. Like, fine.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that they'll knock this out of the park.
Selfish.
No, I think they'll knock it out of the park. You definitely have like all the reason in the world to like feel that way about the potential ending of Dr. Stone. But I feel like Dr. Stone has done just so much to let us know that this ending is planned, thoughtful. You know what I mean? And they're excited for it. You know what I mean? So like that's all I really need. Take the wheel, Riichiro and Boichi, just bring me there, and then we can talk about it. Like it's fun to speculate, absolutely. But like going back once again to like the unpredictable nature of the series, it's like how much are we really gonna get right based on what the series has laid out for us up until this point, you know, especially just looking back on the series historically and all the things that you couldn't possibly have predicted unless you were a literal physicist,
Nostradamus,
or clairvoyant, you know what I mean? Like there's just so much that has to do with the ending of a story like this that makes me think like there's no chance in hell that we're gonna be able to guess exactly how this is gonna be handled or come anywhere close to it. But we'll see, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah, me as well. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and move right into chapter 311 of Black Clover. Make It Home Alive. And this chapter, I mean, it was a chapter, that's for sure.
It was a chapter. It exists.
No, I'm just fucking around.
I'm just no. What am I supposed to do?
Nah, dude, this was like fine. I mean, like it follows kind of like, you know, like what everybody who reads Black Clover has kind of been knowing that the storytelling will kind of eventually like build towards, right? After a certain while, it's like we knew that Morris was going to be, you know, one of the after triad at least big bads, if not like the actual big bad of the arc. You know what I mean? I feel like we can safely assume that this is the last major obstacle of the Spade invasion arc. But like we all knew it was going towards Morris. You know what I mean? So it's cool to actually see him activate now. This giant like mouth on the forehead is crazy.
Yeah.
That panel was like wild. Like Lucifero is already like looking like really cool to me as far as his influence over Morris.
I like that. It's kind of creepy because like on page 10 and 11, the mouth's open and you can see inside it, and it's just this nebulous empty space. It's like, is this a hollow man? Like the implication is like, oh, this is a hollow man. He's just a skin suit, a mouthpiece, and he's a literal mouthpiece because he's like, hey man, he's like, I'm just the messenger. He's not even like, I'm not the big deal here. I'm just the messenger. But you're gonna have to listen to what I have to say.
Yeah.
So like honestly, I like that upon introduction, this guy has become much more ominous, and like I feel like as an antagonist, I like him a lot better than a lot of the initial like Spade Kingdom big bads so far. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm trying to think about why.
I think a lot of it might have to. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Willing to be open.
Oh sure.
Like he's just very open, and he's just like, oh, I'm not even trying to like play coy. Like he's just like, he talks a bit shit about like Megacula. It's like, yeah, I know they tried to use our back door and like sneak out, but they got punished for it. Oh well. Like just kind of like the way they're just very candid. They're like, yeah, don't worry about these guys. They were cool, I guess. They did their thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because of that. You know what I mean? Like Morris was kind of just like this guy who was there in the background while the Dark Triad were kind of doing their thing, like he was supposed to be. but you knew that there was going to be something with that character a little bit later on. And now that we're actually seeing it, and he's kind of approaching the situation with like I knew the Dark Triad would try things like this. Oh, it looks like they tried to, hit the back door on us, like you were just saying, and like that didn't work. They got punished, whatever. You know what I mean? Like the confidence of the mistakes that the previous villains made makes this dude feel that much more imposing, just as like, someone who has a better grasp of the game than even the Dark Triad with their devil influences did. So that works in that way for sure.
I like it because even though he's like talking down on them and he's like, I'm better than them, he still has this thing like, I'm just the messenger, man. Like, I like villains that aren't like absolute megalomaniacs, like, I am the peak, I am the strongest. And they're like, you're only the strongest until you run into a dude that's stronger than you. But a guy who's just like, I'm pretty fucking strong, and I'm just a guy who's doing his job.
Right.
Don't worry about me. Worry about what's behind me. That's way scarier, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I feel like him losing feels more impactful.
Yeah,
Do you guys remember the dude at the circlets name?
Lotus?
I don't.
Wait, circlets?
His name's Lotus? Oh.
Wait, where?
You don't interest me, Lotus, but if you tracked your betrayal, I'll spare you.
Yeah, this is the dude. He's got like
Diamond
smoke
Kingdom
magic. He's like
from the arc with Mars.
Yeah. I didn't know. Oh yeah, that does
Dungeon
make
arc.
sense. Yeah, that does make sense.
I remember him, like his face, but I was just like, where does he fit
I didn't remember.
again?
I didn't remember this dude at first until I like really like sat like because I kind of like went through the chapter at first in the scan, and I just like wasn't really reading it just to get through it and like kind of like see what happened. But then I read it in the official, and I see this name again, like Lotus, and I'm like, I swear to God, like we know this dude. And this
I'm fairly sure. Because he has diamonds on his vest as well. This is definitely the Diamond Kingdom.
He's got like smoke magic.
He has smoke magic.
He has smoke magic.
Yeah, like ash magic or something like that.
Ash magic, maybe.
And in the dungeon arc, he was fighting Asta, and he broke his shit with the sword in that funny ass panel where his whole body is like bent like this, and he's like, "Oh shit, he broke my arm and ribs." Oh
yeah. Fuck. Wait, yeah, I do remember that. I didn't remember
and he
that
had to like skirt out of there on the smoke cart or whatever the fuck it was. He made like a vehicle out of his magic and like skirted out of there.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, the diamonds obviously all over the outfit are a dead giveaway that he's a Diamond Kingdom dude. But I didn't remember that he was like involved in the Mars like dungeon storytelling though. I honestly, I was about to say that he was before I remembered the smoke stuff. I was gonna say like, yeah, this is that dude with like the undying magic, like the zombie magic. He can like raise you or whatever. But no, that's like,
oh no,
that's
not
fucking
that guy.
that's the dude on like Licked or Patri's team. Or
yeah,
whatever
he was the one with like the really shaggy long hair. And,
yeah,
like,
and it's
the
not like
patch.
Veto or anything. I don't remember. Veto is like the dude with like, the beast magic, right, or something.
The beast magic, yep.
Yeah, but the other one, it starts with like an R, I think. I could easily just Google.
Oh,
this.
you're
What the
talking
fuck?
about
Liar?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Raya?
Yeah,
No,
Raya's
not
like
Raya.
the copy mage, isn't he?
Yeah.
He can like copy your shit. No. I'm talking about a dude whose magic is actually like undead.
Not
like-
Sally. Not
It's
the
not
spatial
Sally.
mage that they rock with, but
It's
fucking
not
his
Veto.
eye patch. He has like the undead.
Yeah, I want to
zombie
say it's
magic.
like Rakdos, but I know that that's not it. That's like a Magic the Gathering thing, but it's like you could literally
Yeah.
easily just Google it. I don't know why I'm not just Googling it right now. But like, what do I Google? Oh yeah, undead magic, Black Clover.
Black Clover.
Rades.
Yes.
Yeah, Rades Spirito.
Yes.
That's a tight name. I didn't know his last name was Spirito.
Spirito. I didn't either.
Soul
I don't know if
Corpse
that's ever
magic.
mentioned.
Yeah, Soul Corpse magic. No, I mean, it has to have been mentioned if we have the last name in the wiki.
I mean, it could have just been in like an author.
oh sure,
Whatever.
Yeah, like a
I don't know
volume
how
extra
many-
or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say SBS, but I was like, I don't know if Tabata got it like that. They didn't get it.
the fans be
don't
doing
come for me.
the fans be doing the SBS's for him.
For real.
Man, no.
But yeah,
So
nah. This is tight though. I like the Morris stuff. I like Lotus. Since we're talking about Lotus, it's cool that he's sitting there. He's got his arm ripped off. There's blood coming out or whatever. He's getting fucked up by this dude. But I like that it's cool how Morris is whatever this magic is that's affecting everything around him, like on this double spread. At first I thought like, yo, is he like spawning these demons? But no, it looks like he's like eating them.
I feel like it's like
Absorbing them.
If you look at his eyes and his like grimoire, there's like a black spot and there's all these branches that come out, or like the idea of like a spindle. So I was wondering if he's using basically like a form of like connection magic, and that's why he's able to deal with what he calls intangible concepts. So he's like
modification magic.
Because he's able to like affect intangible concepts like dreams. So he destroys like the dream demons and then links up with them with his magic, and then once he does that, he can kind of rearrange them as he wants.
I mean, I think the devil's power like amplified his. I think this modification magic is. I don't know, because he's the doctor, right? We've seen him like operate on people.
Yeah, and Dante was the one who asked him, "I want a devil's heart." The kid asked him, "Was like, hey man, I want a devil's heart." And when he failed to keep up his promise with his Asta parallel, he was like, "Hey man, I need power. I need strength. Like, give me strength." And he was the guy who like did it for them.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if like, is it just modification magic, or if it's like a different kind of. It could be just.
I don't know. It sounds broken though. Like if the devil's power hadn't made my magic able to affect intangible concepts, like that's wild. That's wild.
Yeah, so he can modify intangible concepts, like.
Yeah, and like that's like super broken as like up to our current understanding of the series. Like just like the word devil, Zagred, right?
Yeah.
Just like Zagred's magic.
Zagred, you know what I mean?
But see, like
hard boss.
But that's what worries me though. Is that like Zagred was introduced and it was like word magic, and it was like, well, how the fuck are they gonna deal with that? You know what I mean? Like that seems like the way that they're explaining this seems like wildly broken and crazy. Like there's nothing that we've seen in the story that should let us think that they should be able to deal with something like that. And then I think it was a combination of anti-magic and dimensional, slash technique from Yami plus whatever did. It was like a super crazy team attack that combined everything together, and then they cut through Zagred or whatever at the end of the elf arc or whatever. So it's like now I'm wondering like, how do they beat this then? You know what I mean? Because Yami is still alive, obviously. We can assume that he's gonna be saved by the team that's coming in to rescue him. That would be crazy if Tabata kills him instead, but like I just don't see that happening. So if they do successfully rescue William and Yami, who are clearly not dead here, they're in a position to be saved. Yeah. So they save him, and then like is Yami's like, because like the dimensional factor, like anti-magic, like plus like dimensional cutting, it's just like, what can you possibly deal with that? Like you clearly have a magic-based ability here. Anti-magic is already like a hard counter to that, and then depending on the density of your shit, you can like override the density of the anti-magic, I'm assuming is kind of like how that works. So like sure, you can say Asta doesn't have the juice to apply his anti-magic to the situation in a way that will be effective, so you add the dimensional slash power of Yami's literal ability that doesn't care about the matter in front of it, no matter what state it's in or how dense it's in, how powerful it's in. It's literally, I'm cutting through dimensions. We understand that concept. We've seen that in like Yu Yu Hakusho and shit. You know what I mean? Like we know how powerful. Yeah, like we know how powerful that is. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're going to introduce an ability that seems more broken, than even the Zagred's word magic, it's like, what's going to be the way that they defeat this character besides just a combination team attack of like everything we've already seen so far? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like what I'm wondering. Yeah, like it's just like everyone busting in at the end here just like makes me think that it's just gonna be like our powers combined, like on some Captain Planet shit. You know what I mean?
Voltron.
Yeah, or some Voltron shit, and it's like, okay, well, If that's how you got to beat him, that's how you got to beat him. But
in the building's fist, and he just holds the sword, and they use him as a lightsaber.
It's
a
just
little anti-magic lightsaber.
I don't know.
That'd be hilarious.
It just feels a little bit too familiar, if that's the case.
I mean, it's a strong combo coming in.
It is a strong combo coming in. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah,
we got Vanessa with her fate magic, which is like always questionable, but
completely different combo than before. You know what I mean? Like, Yuno's spent probably, maybe he'll come in and fight again by the end of the arc or whatever. But like this combination of people, their magic combined, you know, you factor in all of the shit that we know about the series, and like, yeah,
Gordon is a sleeper pick.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of
remember the first panel we see his magic. I still remember that panel. The first panel we ever saw his magic.
Yeah.
When he like does the hounds.
Yeah.
And they just like melt through this fucking. He's like, yo, poison magic. Hounds of like something. Oh,
I remember. Like, I remember when we reviewed that chapter, and all of us were lit off of that. Like, we were like, holy shit, Gordon is one of the coolest characters that we've seen in a while inside of Black Clover when he finally started to turn up. And then we got that chapter. Yeah, then we got but then we got that chapter with like his family like situation, and how like poisoners don't have to be malicious. You can use poison for, you know, like a multitude of different, you know, applications or whatever. So like all that shit was cool. Glad to see Gordon again. Love Gordon as a character. But now I'm just like reminiscent of like the era of Project Manga reviews where we like legitimately enjoyed every chapter of Black Clover. You know, but hey, whatever though. My point is that like, yes, this is a cool combination of characters for the final bout. And if Tabata decides to go their powers, you know, in amalgam with each other, you know, in combination with each other, are enough to like seal the deal or whatever, like that's cool. And he'll probably introduce some, you know, some more extra shit later that like makes it feel even better. But just how familiar the possibility of the ending of this confrontation feels to me is off-putting, because it's like, yes, my power is able to affect intangible concepts. What that says to me is that like any principle that your abilities operate on, I can counter.
This is gonna be some bullshit.
Yeah, like, and maybe not that it's gonna be some bullshit, but it's just like you're giving your villain like too much strength, almost to the point where it's like you want us to ask the question of how are they going to be able to beat that guy, but like if the answer is just going to come back to a perfect combination team attack that can get through anything. Definitely including a dimensional slash from Yami, and definitely including Asta's anti-magic. Even if you include more people in that team attack, it's basically going to operate on like those two, you know, effects in tandem. So it's like, is this really all that much different from the ending of Elf Arc? Not really to me. Maybe. So if it goes that route, I'm gonna be like, that's too bad. But again, like Tabata can do, you know,
something
whatever.
I just thought of that could be interesting to see over the next couple chapters is how Tabata like decides to play with the dichotomy between Morris's modification magic, which is stated to be able to modify even intangible concepts, right? That's an important part of the phrasing. And how it interacts with Vanessa's fate magic, her red string of fate.
That's what I feel like is going to be one of the
that's an intangible concept, right?
Yeah,
so like
I think that's going to be one of the first things that they show, that there's no fucking with this dude. You know what I mean? I think
he's going to modify that bitch.
Yeah, he's just going to instantly fuck with like one of the strongest concepts on the team, and people are going to be like, we have no chance until Asta gets here and Yami wakes up. You know what I mean? Like straight up, like I feel like that's how you up the stakes in a story like Black Clover. It's like, go Rouge. You know what I mean? Like Rouge is, you know, the one inside of their, you know, the team's skill set that makes you go, okay, that's broken. Besides anti-magic, obviously. But like, look at everybody on this last page. You have Noel, you have Gauche, you have Gordon, you have Henry, and then who is that like bottom right corner? Mimosa?
That's Gray.
Oh, Gray? Whoops, my bad. But yeah, okay. So like, let's look at all of their magic inside of that. You know what I mean? Like, what's the one that's like, holy shit, that's broken? Fucking Vanessa. Wait, where is Vanessa?
Oh, man.
Wait, is Vanessa not
like
here?
front row and center.
front and
Oh,
center.
that is Vanessa. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought that was Noelle. I'm very stupid. Noelle's with Asta. Okay. I'm back. So you have this team. Vanessa's magic is obviously the one that's clearly has the most hacks associated with it. So what do you do inside of this new villain that you're trying to hype up? Show that their magic is nothing in comparison to his. Then what do we do?
Man.
We gotta wait for Asta to get here, and we gotta wait to reactivate Yami. That's like
I
what
wonder
it says to
what-
me.
Yeah,
I
I
wonder
feel
to
like
what degree Gray's magic can copy Morris's.
Yeah, that's a big question
and
too,
like
actually.
undo the undo stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's not enough to like make changes I want, but I can
Yeah.
at least undo a change and try to keep up that way, and then maybe use the mirror magic to work twice as fast or something. I
Ooh,
don't
okay.
know.
So now this is getting cool now, because like originally I would be like, okay, so you're copying the magic, and like that's cool, but like this is a devil's, mana
Enhanced
magnitude
magic.
enhancing it, right? So it's like, sure, you copied the technique, you're doing something to kind of reverse what I have going on, but at the end of the day, like Lucifero is here, so it's like,
Yeah, you can still probably only use my magic to like half the degree I could originally.
right, and then plus I have Lucifero, so it's like,
Yeah.
like what I could totally see that be, an area of the conflict where it's like, just go copy his shit, like we got this, you know what I mean? And then it's just like, nah,
You're like,
player.
I can't copy this.
Yeah,
This is too much. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go straight evil. Like,
yeah, I could see that being a leg of it too, but yeah.
I wonder if it's gonna like, cause like, out of this series, Lotus seems like he's likely to die because he's like, I'll make it home, back to my family. I'm desperate, and I'm like, but Gotcha. I thought Gotcha was gonna die, right? I was like, yes, sacrifice him for the power, for the glory of Styx.
No, I think this is the one they do kill, because when was the last time we saw him? But
he's not Spade.
But we know he's a,
He's not Clover.
He's a familiar face. Yeah, he's a familiar face, but like, when has the story needed him since the last time he was in it? Never. All right, we'll bring him back and kill him. There's your stakes. And then everybody else gets to live because we killed somebody last chapter. Yeah.
Turned ally.
Yeah.
Page 6. Julius is being affected by the summoning of Lucifero.
Yeah, this is really interesting, actually, because like someone was talking about
this at least.
Yeah. Wait, wasn't it us that was talking about the possibility that Julius is like related to the Dark Triad in some kind of way?
Yeah. Eagle brought it up actually the first time. You were talking about a conversation you'd
Somebody
seen in the
brought the theory up in my live reaction.
Yeah.
And I'm really charmed with the idea because like Julius kind of looks like a combination of like Yuno and Asta, which looks a lot like, the parallel Xenon and Flame Sword version Asta.
Oh, sure.
Fire Sword Asta, so like
I think I said last week, I think I said the idea was ass. Like literally, until we started talking about it. I think by the end of the conversation I was like, okay, I think I like this a little bit more, but I think like right off the top, just thinking of like that possibility was just like so jarring to me.
Yeah,
but I feel like I feel a little bit better
devils...
about it now that I've read this chapter. Yeah, sorry, keep going.
Because like the devil, we were talking about how like the devil has like time magic as part of its portfolio. Julius has time magic.
Yeah.
You've never seen the cover, like his book literally doesn't have a cover. So
literal infinite Rolodex or whatever.
It's an infinite Rolodex of spells, and I'm like, well, that sounds like pretty unnatural and inhuman. So like, maybe that's the devil's power. Maybe the moment when that guy got like sandwiched with the devil, when he got pierced with it, when he did the dying thing, he came into contact with hell a little bit and like touched Lucifero, like got a new thing. I don't know, because like,
who knows what areas of the energy source, an affinity like time magic will allow you to touch.
Yeah, it's hard to predict limits on like intangible concepts like modification and time.
Sure, yeah, and not even just that, but it's just like, man, it's like we've gotten so much introspective stuff when it comes to, certain affinities that characters are in tune with, like inside of water magic, wind magic, and fire magic. Especially, we see these sylphs and
naiads and salamanders. And...
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like these like little like spiritual familiars that can the elemental. I can't even remember what the concept is off the top of my head right now for it. Spirits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever, the elemental spirits or whatever. Like we got stuff like that, you know, like based on, you know, characters like and Noelle and whatnot. And then you get to a character like Julius, and yes, we know that you were the Wizard King. So you were essentially, you know,
Merlin.
like you were top brass, you know what I mean? Like the cream of the crop inside of this energy system basically for your region. Or no, just in general, because it's like kingdom based, right. So like he was the Wizard King, period. And then like all we really see from you is like how powerful your magic is in combat. I mean, obviously we see like how charismatic he is and how he does on the political side of things too, but like from a purely like energy source related, you know, point of view, the only like more depth that we've really gotten inside of the Black Clover magic system, apart from spirit related stuff like Belle and the salamander and whatnot for characters like and that, like the only like way that we kind of go deeper than that is inside of the devil stuff, you know what I mean? But like what does the Wizard King, like what does he have access to? What do they have access to?
Does he have?
What depths inside of the energy system does someone like a Wizard King like have?
He's basically a blank slate. I still think about like because I feel like his magic relates to time, and so the potential for like parallel timeline existences, like he isn't like this younger Julius isn't the same technically. He's just an alternate timeline Julius to replace the one that died. And so like what if
oh wow, kind of like
but he's fused to Lucifero in a little bit. Like there's an alternate timeline where there is an evil Julius, and it made a deal with Lucifero. But that affects all the other timelines too.
This is like, making me think of like so many like Western comic book things at once.
Like Xenon and were like tied together, and he's like, what made us different? And like that's been hammered in for like last 4 chapters of like the choices we made were different, and that made everything different. And then they keep bringing back to the things like, why does Xenon look like Julius? Why does this thing? Why is Julius affected by the summoning of Lucifero? And I'm just like, I think it's all related to
that's really cool, because you go back to like Xenon and you see the situation that he was in that led him to the decision that he made, and you like almost like in the back of your mind go, in an alternate universe he would have made a different decision, you know what I mean? And then when they create that parallel between Asta and you know what I mean, like naturally you put Asta or actually in that example, you would put in Xenon's spot in that situation, be like, what decision would have made, you know, in that situation based on what we know of the character at this point, you know what I mean? So like the idea of alternate reality versions of the same character making, you know, different decisions is definitely there.
I feel like with the intro of the squad at 1415, and they're like, hey, you know, we're gonna go back to like old school Black Clover roots and like do the team attacks and like be a little more Western comic-y, I think is probably a good strong choice.
Man, I wonder if Tabata reads Western comics. I doubt it, but
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like anybody inside of this field, you know what I mean? Like they're comic book creators, you know what I mean? So if you're a professional comic book creator, you want to assume that you have, you know, pulled experience, you know, from an eclectic pool of, you know, resources, including Western comic books, French comic books, you know what I mean? Absolutely. Indian comic books, like whatever. You want to assume that they're kind of like well-versed and eclectic in that way before they, you know, throw, you know, their kind of work out there. But also it's Japan at the same time, you know, so
like
you never know.
It's like that one member of like even in Korea, like that member of Blackpink that like posed with like an SS uniform because their history books just doesn't focus on the Western like historical theater as opposed to like the Asia Pacific one, which is totally fair. Like but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the timeline thing could work because devils don't exist within our realm. Like they bleed over from another existence. They're basically like 5-dimensional beings, right? Like, and so like if one has time powers and a person makes contact with it, maybe that contact managed to like steal a little bit of it, and once you have it, you have it. The power of time, you can take a little bit and go a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
So like maybe that's why he's being affected. And I think this is the first time we've really seen someone be like a true apostle of a devil in Morris.
Oh,
like the other one's
sure.
like, oh, I've nearly synchronized with this devil, and I am now the devil. Where it's like, this one's just like, hey, I'm doing my own thing, but like I'm working for this guy. Like,
yeah.
So I wonder what that's all gonna be.
We'll see what Tabata has to say, if anything.
I just want to see the giant noodles like slithering out of the walls to like, I don't know, cocoon or something. Like I want them to be something besides just ominous
tendrils.
Ominous tentacles.
Yeah. I feel you on that. I think that's all I had for Black Clover, though. Yeah.
I think so as well. Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and move right into chapter 331 of My Hero Academia, United States of America.
Yeah. Appropriately titled, in my opinion. Because it's funny, because it's like, I don't know, usually titles, a lot of the time, can just tell you something about the entirety of the chapter, but a lot of the time titles are kind of aimed at the climax of the chapter or like the last part of the chapter a lot of the time, and they're literally sending missiles at the end of the chapter.
Yep. Right. They're just like, this might be a minor war crime.
Yeah,
but it's at a local menace, so people will allow us to do it, right? No, it's very much like, hey, because like even this page at like 6 and 7, this punk's graduated from being a Japan's local menace. He's now a threat to the world. We got to use tactics that Japan lacks to make him dead now.
Yes.
And I'm just like, and like even in the previous frame, if not now, then when should I exercise my special authority? Right? Like, it's such an American way of thinking of just feeling like, I, as an individual, have the ability to do this, so I want to do this.
Fuck the rules. Fuck the establishment. Fuck authority. Like, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah. Here's my will. How about? Yeah.
Yeah, and even Akbar is like, hey, I can't save you from the consequences, but I still believe you're correct.
Right. That's hilarious because
I still have my support.
The Admiral Agpar or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that's so funny. Like, in the scan, it's literally just Akbar. And it just, like, makes it so much more obvious that it's a Star Wars reference. But, like, even with the different spelling of the name in the official, it's still so obvious what that's from. You know what I mean? You got a little bit...
look at that, man.
Yeah, and it's a trap. Mustache. Yeah. But you get a little bit more subtle of a reference inside of this Wedge pilot. Did we get the name of Wedge last chapter or the chapter before? Is this the first time they've been calling them Wedge?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's a Star Wars reference too, for sure. Like that's like the fighter pilot that Luke like looked up to when he first joined the brigade, isn't it? I know it's a fighter pilot from Star Wars for sure, but I didn't know.
I mean, that makes sense. Planes with lasers.
I just don't know if he's like the one that like, because Luke originally called out somebody like in a board meeting with all of the other fighter pilots, and then like made that dude like look like really dumb during the meeting. And then there was like a YouTube, or they're not a YouTube, but there was a like Family Guy skit that like said like when they were doing their Star Wars related content, there was like a moment where like they took that scene and then recreated it in Family Guy, where Luke makes that character look stupid. And then that guy's like, can I talk to you over here for a second? He's like, don't ever fucking do that again. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the #1 pilot around here, bro. You can't make me look dumb in front of all my people. And he like scolds him or some shit, like off camera or whatever in Family Guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember that and associate it because I recognize the name Wedge from Star Wars, and I just associated with it with that character. Star Wars fans correct me, but that's definitely a fighter pilot, I think. In fact, I'm about to just Google it because I'm in front of my computer.
Oh man, like I feel like Stars and Stripes like personality really emphasizes kind of like American culture of like hyper individuality.
Yes.
Because they're like, hey man, I don't need common consensus. I don't need permission to do anything. I'm gonna do whatever I want. Like for better or worse, oftentimes worse in recent years, but like an American's mentality is like it's like that movie like love is never having to say you're sorry, but if you just take out love and replace it with freedom, and then you're just like, hey, what's the average American do? Freedom is never having to apologize for anything, even if I'm wrong, and die over it. And I'm just like, bro, what's going on? Like,
yeah.
And like America's like historical proclivity of just like, hey, you know what? Let's just shoot drones and ask questions. Hopefully never.
Yeah.
Hopefully never.
Hopefully never.
Hopefully never. We're just gonna hope you just all forget about that.
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
Like that
Drone
happens
strikes?
a lot.
What are you talking about?
I think
don't
there's
know.
I
Who
think
put
there's
that airport there?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
What
say.
a wacky accident.
I think there's a little bit of a little splash of meta commentary on the bottom of page 4, because if you look at that bottom left panel on page 4, it's like she boasts an impressive degree of freedom when it comes to non-living things. Apparently, therein lies New Order's true utility. And on this panel, you have like, I can't remember what that symbol is, but it's like something related to like
our office.
Yeah, there we go.
Basically, it's like the office of the government. Like,
Oh yeah, the
that
eagle
is-
with like the 13.
Yeah, and it's got
Yeah,
like fireworks in
classic.
one hand and then like a branch in the
Yeah,
other or whatever.
those are
The
actually
olive
the
branch and the
arrows
13
and the olive
arrows,
branches.
Yeah, and
13
yeah.
arrows
War
and
and
an olive
peace.
branch.
Yeah, that's like our stamp or whatever, like our
It is.
sigil
It straight up is.
essentially. But
It's-
like you have that plus the stripes on like the American like flag or whatever, I'm assuming is like what that is symbolizing in that panel. And just the wording on that like felt so meta to me, because it's like she boasts an impressive degree of freedom when it comes to non-living things. So it's like, if it's, you know, America tends to take a little bit softer of an approach when it comes to its people in like the changes that it wants to make. It like lets us, you know, go through the democratic process of like enacting change inside of us. You know what I mean? But when it comes to like anything non-living, they just throw money at it and change whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah,
you
they
know what
really
I mean?
do.
Yeah, so like it
And-
felt like meta commentary to me in that way, because it's
It
like
has
when
to
have, you,
be.
when have you ever been able to stop the tearing down of trees to make a parking lot? You know what I mean? Like
Never.
I
Like-
think you can vote against something like that, but I mean, like, I don't know. You
But
just
I mean,
don't
half
ever
the
hear
time
too
they
much
just
about.
hide those meetings. Like,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
one's gonna advertise what's on one meeting docket from the next.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
like communities will get changed all the time. Like there's in where I live, there is a community fridge that people have been putting out and stocking for the community, by the community, to make sure that the people that are homeless or hard up for whatever, or
Yeah.
not quite homeless, just like can have something that they can eat. And the city keeps trying to shut us down because they have all these various rules of like how it's like illegal to feed the homeless because there's too many like persecutable like lawyering type like overheads that-
Illegal to feed the homeless is like all you have to say about that.
Yeah, that's
like,
you know,
yeah.
it's really rough because
Yeah.
like America is the kind of place
Wow.
where people say, it's my birthday week, can I get a free shot? I've never seen a citizen turn down a free object until it got turned into a vaccine. Like, and then it's like a communal thing. It's like, oh, that's not my individual benefit, so fuck that. Like, and it's just like American hyper individuality is so toxic
hilarious.
sometimes. And like
Yeah.
you have to make a character like Stars and Stripes, you have opinions about America.
For sure.
Horikoshi
I
is just
said
like, hey,
meta
man, this is where
commentary.
we're at.
I said meta commentary, but it's more like a, well, I guess it's still metatextual, but it's more like a criticism. You know what I mean? Yeah, like a little jab. You know what I mean? But let's talk about Star and Stripe, right? Because like this is a literal Nen ability.
Yeah,
that we're dealing with right now. Like this ability is busted. Like personally, like I'm gonna need like, just based on the history of what I've come to understand about superpowers inside of My Hero Academia, like for an ability of this magnitude, I feel like I'm gonna need a nosebleed panel, or something to show that there's like some kind
Visible
of
harm.
stamina-based detriment to this power,
I
or
think there should
something.
be.
Because like,
There's
dude,
gotta
these
be.
attacks are too damn big to not
Oh, no,
have some
she's
kind
all
of
power
muscle
moves.
that you're working while you do these things. Because like for an ability like this to be infinitely spammed, as long as you can recite the verbal incantation for it, like if that's the condition, and like someone can like crush your windpipe or something, or like
Can't
stop
speak, no
you from
powers.
speaking in order to do it, like that's fine, it works as a caveat. But like I can attack you from so far away. Like it's
Dude,
not even
air
funny. Like what
forms
hope do
into
you
my
have?
shape.
Yeah, like what hope do you have of stopping me from using this ability before you even see me? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's too broken. It has to be some kind of stamina based detriment or something. At least I want to see
She has
that.
to touch him.
She does have to touch you. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That might be bad.
He
might make
has to touch
touching
you,
him
but
and
like
whatever else she's trying to manipulate.
Exactly. But like just because she has to touch you doesn't mean she can't kill you with the things way far away that she's also touching. You know what I mean? Like she literally just showed us stopping airflow in a certain area of effective atmosphere so far away from Shigaraki. It's like what point is there that I have to touch you in order to affect you directly if I can just stop your airflow inside of a long range, stretch of area, you know what I mean?
I really like that Shigaraki like touched on the thing like on page 3. He's like, yeah, this practically redefines what a quirk can be. And he's like, there has to be an upper limit. There has to be some sort of like stamina based thing, like you were saying. He's like, maybe it's a life power. There's a barometer. He's like, I don't know what the upper limits are, but we're gonna find out. And I'm a sturdy motherfucker.
Yeah. I loved this like 2 pages on 4 and 5 of his not only just like internal monologue of how he's processing the phenomena at hand, but also it works double as a further breakdown of the capability of him, and also New World Order, because like like the dialogue is implying that he's trying to get to the bottom of how the ability works, but his logic is so sound that we can take it as a literal explanation of how the ability is working, right?
It's effectively fact.
Yeah, exactly. Until Star and Stripe says, no, you had my ability completely misinterpreted from the beginning, and that's why you lost. Until we get that, like, we can assume that what he's saying right now is factual about the quirk. So like I just love the way that it was composed in that way, you know what I mean? Because it's like there's a reason why he's admiring Star and Stripe to the point of wanting to take her quirk and wanting to learn everything about it, testing its limits, things like that. That automatically gives reason to the need of a 2-page, mostly text breakdown of what's happening right now.
I actually liked the fact that during 4 and 5, when he's breaking down and thinking about the power, it's about blank white space or blank black space representing AFO and Shigaraki combined, and the fact that he's literally not pictured, right? It's blank space. He is not in the equation. He is a blank slate full of information trying to make sense of himself.
Wow.
Like when the white part on 5, he's like, hey, she called my dog my bond. Would he respond? And then, AFO's
Wait, you're talking about the dog? Hold on, wait. Oh, on page 5.
On page 5, where he references the dog, that's like Shigaraki's personality bleeding through. You can see like AFO's like computer-like vocabulary, like the difference in efficacy between the rules of living and non-living things must we do with the process of naming the target, and just like even his like language bleeds over and changes in like
Yeah.
verbosity.
Yeah.
So I really
Yeah,
like
how do
this
you pronounce that?
page. Yeah, I don't know. I just read the word. I don't know how
No,
to
this
say
is
it.
cool though, dude, because like that like line of dialogue was like really cool to me because it's like only two targets at once, I suppose. And what's her effective range? Would it work if she called my dog Mon by his name Mon? Because it's like that's the name I've associated with that dog, and that's the
Does the
name
dog
that it
recognize the name?
reacts to whenever I call it. But like we have, you know what I mean? Like we know that dogs have a fraction of the sentience of us. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
like they can't contemplate their own existence. They
My
don't
name's
think.
actually Good Boy, and
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
recognize your power
Yeah,
here.
like what how does the dog identify themselves? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we have no way of knowing that based on our
Dude, New World
understanding of
Yeah,
Order
them.
is
So
such a slam dunk against America, like, and how we have an effective surveillance state since the Patriot Act.
it is, but I'm like worried about like and power scaling isn't something that I'm normally worried about too much inside of, you know, especially contemporary shonen storytelling because they've got, you know, for by and large a pretty good handle on that just based on the history of shonen storytelling up
Hmm.
until this point being heavily criticized for how it handles power. But like introducing Star and Stripe in direct opposition to Shigaraki, it's like, okay, so all eyes are on Deku, basically, and his coaches, because it's like, we know that Deku has the potential to deal with power on this scale, but like, what does that mean for the secondary characters? And not just like random class 1A, you know, or 1B characters that we know are never going to get significant shine in the story, Sero, Sugar Rush, etc. But like Bakugo and
Coda.
Todoroki, you know what I mean? Like, how are they going to be able to keep up with the power necessary to put this threat down? And any, like, obviously it's all about Deku versus Shigaraki, and they're the only two characters that actually matter at the end of the day when it comes down to like resolving the conflict of My Hero
Hmm.
Academia. But in the meantime, you have to have some kind of compelling thread to the other characters that you built up for this amount of time. And since this is an action-based manga and we're going into endgame territory, apparently, it's like I want more characters than just Deku to matter at the end of the day. Otherwise, it's going to feel
I
like
do
Dragon
too.
Ball to me. And I don't want a
Um,
story like My Hero Academia to feel like Dragon Ball
Especially
ever.
when they have stuff like we were all the greatest heroes that
Yeah,
day, that kind of stuff. And we're like, hey, they had a whole thing about you can't shoulder all the burdens alone, which for me
right.
indicates that Star and Stripes is going to lose. The stakes question is she going to lose her power?
That's a big question, but just going back to like what you were saying about the line of dialogue saying we were all became the world's best hero or whatever, and whatever that means in its like multiple interpretations and
Hmm.
capacities, as far as like everybody else's role in that line of dialogue does not have to be, you know, inherently physical. You know what I mean? Like we know that
No, it
Deku
doesn't
is the
have to be a truism.
yeah, Deku is the physical aspect of that greatest hero, and he's a lot more than just the physical aspect of it too. But like, I'm assuming that what that line of dialogue meant is that there are areas of heroism that Deku couldn't possibly excel in. You know, that other characters that we've come to know and love over the course of time is going to fill in those spots for. Like, if Deku is like the, you know, intuition and strength side of things, and just that kind of person that could be the number one hero, like if you take those three areas of
Hmm.
heroism and apply it to Deku, then like you can apply all the other areas of heroism that they've been building up, you know, throughout the entire course of the series. You can assign that to whoever you want along the way, as long as they all come together and make up that number one hero. But since this is such an action based series where the strength of characters seems to matter a great deal, then
Hmm.
to have the scaling feel so lopsided in, you know, from literally the introduction of Shigaraki's rebirthed form until now has really it is really, you know, like when the power scaling of My Hero Academia kind of started to like jump off the rails a little bit, because it's like, well, no, not really even Shigaraki. It goes back as early as like introducing Black Whip and the multiple, you know, quirk
Hmm.
aspect of Deku. And even though that was handled brilliantly by Shigaraki inside of Deku up until this point, just based on like the rate of progression inside of that concept for Deku, it took him a long time to find out how to use Black Whip at will, in a non-harmful way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like Fa
Yeah.
Jin is like not a broken ability. You know what I mean? Like, so there are ways that Kohei has kind of supplemented the initial outrage of that concept in ways that feel really good. But when it comes down to this final confrontation and you give Shigaraki all of this, and now Deku is coming into his own in regard to all of the other quirks that he has in his arsenal, now it's going to be like, okay, are other characters ever going to matter physically again? Because like even Star and Stripe makes a point here. It's like if this was all it took to take out Shigaraki, then even Endeavor could have beat him. When she does the Keranos inside of the laser beam concentration.
Dude, the combined lasers was sick.
That shit was cold-blooded.
It leaves her vulnerable though.
It does, yeah.
She's using laser and atmosphere.
Yeah, so she doesn't have her strength and durability.
Does she have the human stamina to maintain her powers?
Well, we know that she can only use 2 orders at a time, and one of them we can assume, and I think she even stated, was used for her strength, you know, in hand-to-hand combat to make her, you know, damage and endurance as you know, comparable to All Might or whatever, and then she imposes new rules on external factors outside of that. But here, she's clearly using combined into one lasers and giant atmosphere version of myself at the same time, so it does leave her open, you know what I mean? But how are you going to get to her? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I love the fist bump to the earth. That's just
right.
Such a cool fight.
The double page spread on 10 and 11, son, like that was insane.
Oh,
like
no.
the paneling of the clap, the fucking like the tilted perspective of the flow of the panels from right to left, plus the overhand clap. It felt very Fujimoto Tatsuki.
Cloud.
Yeah, it felt like Fujimoto Tatsuki and Chainsaw Man, because when Aki is fighting the Katana Devil, he uses, you know, that sword that has the oh man, it's been so long since I've read Chainsaw Man, but basically it was a nail related power, and you had to like stick like 3 or 4 nails in somebody before you could get the desired effect. And then you know, Aki's sword represented those nail stabs, and then like the Katana Devil got like bit by that giant, you know, fucking like moose skull like thing or whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. I swear to God you do, even if I can't remember it all right now. But like the paneling on that showed, you know, a hand from outside of the story, or not outside of the story, but from just outside of the art, and it was like a hand coming in from the side flicking the nails in, you know, whenever Aki was stabbing the Katana Devil. And that paneling, I just remembered that when I was reading this 10 and 11 spread, if that makes sense to anybody out there. But yeah.
Oh man.
Fire.
Yeah, the fist bump to the earth was definitely tight. And this giant like kaiju air being, this is dummy broken.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you can make air into like a solid tangible object is just so weird. Like, there's almost assumed like caveats to her commands, like the air forms into my shape but 1,000 times bigger, but like where in there does she state that it's like
I can control this
literal
massive atmosphere?
Yeah, I feel like it's not,
to me,
I think it's
and
permeable.
Yeah, like can I psionically control this just because it has my shape? That feels like it should be a rule.
Yeah,
I think her weakness, I think that like mimics her like her shape and movement would be a good like caveat if it was like, it might be a translation thing, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that like her biggest weakness is that she has to rely on those planes. She's like, I can't fly.
Yeah,
you
that's right.
have to carry me. So if I'm falling, so is that 1,000 foot of atmosphere too. Like, it's not going to be doing anything. And it doesn't say that the atmosphere is solid. It's still atmosphere. It just happens to take the shape.
It makes me think that there's like a secret third rule that she can impose if she needs to, at the cost of like life force or some kind of severe physical detriment, right? And not to say that she's already using that here, but just the talk of how she's able to, like, okay, you want to know what actually? This actually is fine, because if we know that she is turning off her self-regulated or self-allocated rule of super strength and whatnot, so that she can you know, grab the combining of lasers and use them with her giant atmosphere form. If we know that she's using 2 rules for that, and so she's not allocating any of her power to her own defense and personal power, then like that's fine. But like in this situation right here with the fist bump to the earth, while we're talking about how she's able to control the new atmosphere version of herself, it's like that can be 2 rules at once since there's no laser involved here. You know what I mean? Because she says the air forms into my shape, but 1,000 times bigger. And we know that that gives the effect of the giant atmosphere version of Star and Stripe. But then where does the literal, like, where does the Pacific Rim G Gundam, you know, style of control come from? It could be an unspoken second rule that she's applying and sacrificing her personal strength for in this moment, and it just wasn't given to us by Kohei for some reason in the dialogue, because she can still be using 2 rules at once during this, you know, stretch of storytelling from 8 to 11. You know what I mean? If you really think about it, you could try to say that, even though it should definitely be stated in the actual comic if that's what's happening. There's still 2 things happening inside of her power right now. So
I feel like it's just part of her perception of it too.
Sure.
Because it is such a conceptual ability that how she perceives herself and how the air is forming around her.
That's a good point.
It's just how she perceives it, because like the fact that it doesn't work on Shigaraki because perceptions literally don't match. She can't just use, you know, the surveillance state and know his name. He doesn't even know who he is. He's reimagining himself. He's reconceiving himself. He doesn't even know.
Yeah. As broken as it seems, I'm confident in Kohei. If he's going out of his way to explain the ability to this extent inside of this stretch of chapters, probably just because of how broken it is. There's even, you could even try to say as a meta commentary or a metatextual stamp on the brokenness of the ability inside of Shigaraki's dialogue, saying, you know, what does it say? A jaw-dropping, unreasonable power that makes the world her plaything, and one that practically redefines what a quirk can be. If you wanted to be really critical of that line of dialogue, you could say that that is Kohei injecting that line specifically because he knows how wild this quirk is and knows that people will think it's fucking too much for My Hero Academia, so like why not let an actual character in the story say that, so it kind of like makes it feel a little bit better or whatever. But that coupled with the fact that he's taking this long to actually explain what the ability does according to multiple characters' perception of it is just like, you know, the nail that kind of drives that thought home for me. It's like Kohei knows that this is too wild for his story. So he's making sure that even characters in the story acknowledge that. You know?
Dude, absolutely. I mean, that's authorial trust a little bit. Like, hey, I am acknowledging to you guys, the readers, that this is happening. I wonder if... Sorry, Eagle, what are you saying?
No, I was just agreeing with what you were saying.
Oh, thank you. But I think that, like, when he landed on the jet, he may have done something to it.
Yeah, I was thinking so too.
Hey, get off. That's Star's perch. Shakes him off, and then she lands, and probably on that plane. So I wonder if that's how he does like a little reversal while he's literally getting fried to death. Gesundheit.
Thank you. That was another question that I had. It's like he landed on this American dude's plane and had all of the time in the world to just disintegrate it and didn't. You know what I mean? And then he does a little aerial spin that gets him off. He jumps back on the Nomu. And then, you know, Star and Stripe jumps on it, assumingly, and continues to ride it. I think it makes all the sense in the world that Shigaraki tampered with this plane in some kind of way.
Absolutely.
That we'll see next chapter.
AFO, even if he's all discombobulated, still playing 4-dimensional chess.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah. Straight up, bro. That shit's wild to think about.
Fun chapter. I think this fight's gonna, like, take 2 more episodes, and that's about it.
I'm excited to see. I think that there's 1 more chapter for wrap up on this. 2, if we get 2 more, that would be crazy. Like, I feel like if you have 1 more chapter, it's like Shigaraki definitely just wins. But if you have 2 more chapters, then you can introduce Tiamat, which looks like a game-changing situation that Shigaraki won't be able to deal with. and then you introduce a cliffhanger at the end that maybe implies that Shigaraki does have a way to deal with it, and then the chapter after that he does and then wins, or something like that. But I feel like one chapter more or two chapters more says a lot in regard to what can happen, at least to me. But like, I'm super excited to see like what these missiles do, because you just based on like our understanding of, you know, America and its military, we want to go like, all right, here's the here's the trump card, like let's introduce it. Yeah, you know, here's our haymaker, and then Shigaraki's
named after a dragon god of destruction.
Right, yeah, and I know that you like have a lot of experience with Tiamat as like a Dungeons and Dragons like DM, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, I'm sure we don't even need to go into it. But like, but I don't know,
so
man.
Poorly for everyone.
Yeah, I feel like one chapter more says like Shigaraki definitely wins this. 2 chapters more would say, you know, Star and Stripe finds a way to deal with it for the time being as like a stopgap, and then it ends like on a mysterious resolution or some kind of obvious separation of the two that allows Star and Stripe to come back and talk about what she's experienced, and vice versa for Shiggy. I don't fucking know, but either way, it's gonna be epic as shit, no matter how. Because I feel like people are like so confident. It's like Star and Stripe's gonna die. She's gonna lose her quirk, or she's gonna kill Shigaraki, not kill Shigaraki, or at least beat him or something. I don't really know entirely, but like, there's so many things that could happen besides 2 things. You know what I mean? Is basically the point that
I'm still thinking that she might use her quirk on herself to keep it from transferring. Like as a dying thing, he's like, I'll take your quirk, and she's like, Stars and Stripes. You can never relinquish your power, and then dies on him and just pisses him the fuck off. Like, that's what I'm expecting. She's like, hey, I may have been wrong this entire time about being able to take you, but I'm still gonna spite you. Spits in your face, dies.
Yes, dude.
It's the most macho, like, machismo kind of thing that I could think of, and like Stars and Stripes just is pure machismo.
Dude, I like that a lot, actually. Yeah, I think Shigaraki has her.
She just grabs her chest and she's like, Star and Stripe can't be taken.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, like I think that would be so gangster and like so cool, because it's like,
or New Order.
Yeah, New Order. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think that would be so fucking sick. Dude.
Or like New World Order dies with me.
Yeah, something like
so
that.
If she dies, it straight up like dies with her.
Yeah.
She's like, she has 2 powers. She just does 2 powers. New World Order dies with me. New World Order can't be transferred.
Yeah, that works for stakes and it works for subversion, right? Because like out of all of the things that I've seen people say about the potential resolution to this particular conflict, you know what I mean? It's kind of like how I was saying a little bit before. Like, people think that Star and Stripe is going to die and get her quirk taken for the sake of stakes. Like, oh no, what's Deku and them going to do now that, you know, All for One has won another battle inside of this war or whatever? And like, that's definitely wild and crazy or whatever. But the situation where Star and Stripe loses, but doesn't lose her quirk, does so much more for the story, because it ups the stakes in regard to Shigaraki's capability to defeat Star and Stripe after this much hype being built up for her, but also it's not like ultimate stake threat level maximum because he didn't get the quirk, and it happened in a way that made sense to our understanding of the over-explained quirk that we have at hand here, and also just like, we're not going to give Shigaraki that much, even though we allowed him to win. You know what I mean? Like, that just makes so much sense for the writing.
More human.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea that she basically uses her powers to render herself a normal, mundane human.
Right.
And then that also kind of caps her stupid powers, because then she can say, my trait can't be transferred, and then I have super strength. And so she limits herself to a single use of her New World Order, as opposed to the thing, and that forces her to think flexibly. That challenges a protagonist that's supposed to be stupid helpful.
And like, look at All for One as like a 5-headed, you know, 4D chess mastermind kind of character. It's like, we already know that he was anticipating Star and Stripe. He knows about her quirk, wants it for himself, knows Shigaraki is the zealot that's going to go grab it for him, and he's been, you know, accomplishing each and every single one of his 5-headed plots up until this point. Right. So like, you don't want to, you know, take away from the stakes that much to the point where Star and Stripe just beats Shigaraki and the story is over. We know that's not going to happen. So how do you, you know, maintain the capability of All for One without having it go to worst case scenario possible? It's like, yes, you beat Star and Stripe. You didn't get the quirk the way that All for One was expecting and wanted, because like that's something that we have to worry about whenever All for One says he wants something, is that he has the means to actually make it possible, and shows that in the story that he makes his wants possible and actually accomplishes his goals rather often inside of his planning.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we don't want to take away from that. So Shigaraki fights Star and Stripe, beats her, but doesn't take her quirk because of exactly what Mello was talking about. Sure, All for One didn't exactly achieve the goal that he was specifically going for, so it's a subversion in that way. But also, Star and Stripe is out of the picture now, and that works for All for One.
He's forced a major piece off the board.
Exactly, that works for All for One and Shigaraki to the same degree, even if he didn't get the quirk for himself. Like, she's still gone. So it still works for stakes, you know what I mean?
And didn't he tell Spinner that this was basically a bonus game? He's like, yeah, this is just...
Yeah, kinda.
This is a bonus game, man. Like, I don't care if I win or lose, but like, this is a good opportunity. Either way, I could get like a huge success and basically win the war like that, or I take a board off the piece and I have less ways to lose now.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Win-win.
True. Yeah, straight up. Love it. That's all. That's all.
Chapter.
Such an incredible chapter. Love the conversation we got from it. I'm good off of this week of My Hero, though.
Well, with that, I think we can go ahead and go right into chapter 1030. I keep wanting to say 10,000 for some reason.
Yeah, I do it in my head all the time.
Hey, we're getting there.
One day.
Echoing the impermanence of all things.
Yeah.
And we get a little funny little cover here. Reader request, Brooke, careful not to step on a line of army ants.
By
I
Ebby.
like it.
Shout out Ebby.
It's really sweet because Brooks is very much about the sanctity of life.
Right.
Yeah, no, you ain't doing nothing to nobody.
Makes sense.
I like that.
Squish you like a bug.
Yeah, that was cool.
Who am I to squish you like a bug? Yo.
Yeah, this chapter was some shit, man. Yeah, go ahead.
Dude.
Well, I was just gonna say we start off with this scene of Apu here, kind of giving Drake a pitch that makes it seem like he has really just been plotting on some Dolo shit from the beginning.
I thought that was cap. I was like, no way. This motherfucker just switches sides with whoever's most convenient at the time that he needs to present, you know, like himself as a certain way to whoever's in front of him. You know what I mean? Like whenever Kaido is like, I'm gonna kill you if you don't join, he's like, guess I'm on your team. Works for him until someone else fades him. Is like, guess I'm on your team. You know what I mean? Like we could be a team. You know what I mean? Like now that I like feel like I, you know, don't fit in a certain area
for my life.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Come
Like
on,
it just. Yeah, it feels like he's one of those characters that will literally just try to fill the gap wherever he can. Kind of like that one girl from Squid Game.
Yeah.
I feel like the crazy older lady from Squid Game.
I can do everything but the stuff I can't do.
Exactly. Type shit. Yeah, that feels like Apu to me.
Yeah. Oh,
but
man.
I don't know, it kind of felt like, to me, maybe he was like sincerely trying to like ride the wave as far as what was best for him.
Yeah.
The Kaido situation, you know, he's like, okay, this is where I can kind of get in where I fit in and like lay low and bide my time.
Yeah.
But this genuinely does feel to me like he maybe took a step back from the situation and was like, well, hey, well, damn, this battle ain't going exactly how I thought it was gonna, so maybe I could swoop in at the end and try and pull some shit.
There's definitely room for nuance in that way, right? You know what I mean? Like Apu could have had like an entirely, you know, established plan in his mind of how he thought his journey would go. Then he meets Kizaru. You know what I mean?
He's really on some fucking...
Yeah, now we know
he could have been really on some Aizen shit.
Like he could have been like on some other shit strategically, but just ran into powerhouse, you know, hurdles that he couldn't clear.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Like,
so
I'm forced to do this.
Yeah, you know, so
I don't like these people.
So even if he is like 5-headed master planner, you know, like or some shit like that, you know, or whatever we're trying to kind of like paint him as right now, like there's still physical hurdles that he has to like come across, and he has to, you know, do what he can to clear them in whatever way that he can inside of his capabilities. You know what I mean? So even if it's not like a chick from Squid Games kind of thing where it's just like I'm just gonna ally myself with whoever is stronger than me at the time, like it could definitely be a situation where it's like I had an idea, Kizaru fucked that up, had to regroup, had to replan, you know, then got back on track, you know, inside of my ultimate, you know, like plan or whatever, and then ran into Kaido. Kaido was a bigger obstacle. I just fell in line with him, and then now that, you know, I've kind of been separated from Kaido in a very obvious way, I feel like I can get back to, you know, what I was going for. That's cool if we want to do it like that too, you know what I mean? But, you know, like, you never know with One Piece characters. Like, Oda is like such an intensely profound character writer that you just literally never know.
With Apu, like a musician, he plays to the crowd. Is he sincere? Probably not. But he's still gonna, you know, pander to the crowd, whoever's in front of him, whoever his audience he perceives it to be. He's gonna do that.
That's a great take.
Plus, since Remy, I've noticed a lot of characters' hair when I observe them. And
I was just thinking about this, fam.
Tail looks like a scorpion.
Yeah.
Like, his helmet with the eyes and a little bit of his hair literally looks like a scorpion. He is a betrayer type character.
Oh my god.
And I like the idea that he's an untrustworthy person. Like, I like the way he controls the conversation as well. He's just like, I'm guessing you're a spy, but that doesn't matter there. I'm putting you on the place, but it's okay. Here's my pitch. He's like causing like emotional tension, and then decreasing it, and then throwing in his pitch. Like, that's how people get conned.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of thing. Oh, hey, aren't you betraying? Hey, you're a spy. I'm not saying this is a conversation about who's, you know, trustworthy or not. That's a non-issue. We're gonna deal with that later. But what you really want is the benefit, right? Come on, here, have a talk with me. Drink with the devil. Have him dine with the devil. Come on, you know. We're doing this thing, and like those three dudes are also looming around, and they're like, yeah, why would we fight each other? But if you're not on our side, they might get you.
Zanki.
What'd you say?
The numbers, Inbi, Fuga, and Zanki.
Yeah, the numbers. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. This was a cool chapter. I don't know. I feel like I don't know really how I feel. Actually, I do know how I feel about it. I want to say I didn't like the chapter, but at the same time, it's like, even though that like the major beats of the chapter are things that I don't necessarily agree with. Like, One Piece is just a story that has so much going on in every chapter that it's like, even if I didn't like 2 or 3 things about it, like, there's so much to talk about outside of that like, by the time I'm sitting down in this kind of conversation, in this kind of atmosphere, and get to the end of the review, I end up going like, okay, I look at this a little bit differently now. And One Piece isn't normally something that I usually have too many issues with, but like, the Awakening stuff is cool. Like, I really like that we're seeing Awakening in this way in this chapter, but like, when did Law achieve Awakening is kind of my question. Like, before he started hanging out with the Straw Hats post time skip? Because if so, then that's like really awkward that he didn't activate this in Dressrosa. Did he get it after Dressrosa? If so, when? You know what I mean? Is kind of like how I'm looking at this, because it just feels so injected and so awkward, and just doesn't feel like it fits in.
How is this acknowledged?
With like Oda's long game planning and storytelling that we're so used to. This just feels kind of shoehorned, which is a term that I don't usually associate with One Piece, at least in the amount of time that we've been reviewing it. You know what I mean? So sure, not to say that that word doesn't fit inside of One Piece since we've been reviewing it, but I don't think I've actually referred to it ever until like right now. You know what I mean? And not to say that that's like a wild and crazy detriment to the storytelling of Wano, but like,
I think something that could justify him not using it in Dressrosa is the fact that he already like kind of resigned himself to the fact that he couldn't beat Doflamingo, and he was really like relying on Luffy in that scenario as far as the physical side of things, like to beat Dofi up.
So that would mean that he came to the conclusion.
I feel like I remember him stating multiple times, like, we can't beat Doflamingo. I can't beat Doflamingo.
He did say that.
And so for him to activate an ability that, as he stated, once activated, secures that he'll lose the fight if he doesn't end it with that one move, is kind of like,
it
literally drains his
but it's life or death, though. You know what I mean? Like, if you come to the conclusion that you can't beat Doflamingo, even with a hidden secret technique that you're not even willing to use because you think the power gap is that significant. But he'll use it on Big Mom, who is clearly a bigger threat than Doflamingo.
Well, it has to do with mental trauma as well with Doflamingo. Like,
Sure.
A lot of the reason why he felt he couldn't beat Doflamingo was like mental.
Sure. And that's fine. That's fine. But at the same time, like, your overarching will for your goal that you've already resigned, you know, your health to, like, I will die for this philosophy. Even if you're up against an, you know, a traumatic, you know, source of your timidness or, you know, lack of confidence, you attribute that to Doflamingo. Sure, whatever. So I don't, you know, believe in myself as much as I would against a character like Big Mom. Doflamingo just like has that kind of traumatic hold over me to where I feel like it's futile no matter what. You would still use your trump card in your dying moment. You know what I mean? And if not, you're a bad character. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Like Law has been built up to this point in a way to where like he's very, you know, has his heels dug into his convictions. He has a clear goal. Yes, Doflamingo is his biggest personal hurdle, but like he's aware of his capabilities and he knows what he can or can't do. He's like one of the first times that we've gotten that in depth of a consideration of the caveats of your devil fruit inside of a single person. He's like, I know what my limits are. I have to save my stamina so that I can use room in these moments that I've thought ahead to use them in, and I can't use any more of it before then, otherwise the plan is fucked. You're telling me that someone who is on that level of thinking strategically will just decide because he's facing Doflamingo in his last moments to not try and use the awakening, the strongest ability that he has, and literally in this chapter is confirmed as something you use when you are down and out and have no other options, because you will definitely lose if it's not effective. And he doesn't try to use that in that moment just because Doflamingo, like, it just doesn't feel good to me personally. Like, I don't like that reasoning for it. You know what I mean? Like, it feels shoehorned in that way because no matter how you try to look at it, Law seems drastically more incompetent than he has at any point in the series.
If you consider those things.
Right, if you consider those things.
The way Law's dialogue or inner monologue or flashback dialogue, I guess, what it points to is that he maybe learned it after the Dofi fight.
Okay.
Because he says, I'm still not used to it. I'll do it if I'm on my last legs, but the stamina consumption is extreme and it ensures I'll lose the battle.
Right. And that's fine. So he got it after Dressrosa. That makes more sense for Dressrosa. But Law has been pretty close to the hip since Dressrosa. And this is like a pretty big deal inside of the power system. Something that you would think takes like a crazy situation to bring out of you or intense training. And the last craziest situation that he was in was when he literally was dying fighting Doflamingo and we didn't see it. So like, what training could he have possibly done in between Dressrosa and now to the point where Oda decided not to show us, but also just gave him the capability at the end of the day? Like, that just makes no sense to me, personally.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to assume that he just kind of trained while he was in Wano in the meantime of like the whole cake shit.
But why off screen that?
For that couple weeks. Well, just because you're showing whole cake shit.
That's
not
true.
The main character.
That's true. That's definitely true. So wait, that's right, because he wasn't there for whole cake, right?
Yeah.
So you have a whole story arc where Law isn't a factor. But then you go into this moment where you're finally deciding to show that he has awakening, and Law goes, you got that shit? And he's like, yeah, I got that shit. Don't even trip, bro. Like, we got it. It kind of sucks, but I got it. You know what I mean? Like, where is the flashback that we're used to seeing whenever we see blooms of strength increases inside of One Piece to show that he did this during Whole Cake Island? You know what I mean? Like, it just seems so out of character for One Piece, no matter how you kind of look at it.
Yeah, I mean, well, unless you look at it from like the standpoint, I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, when you say that, that is a very good point. We usually do get a flashback, but I'm wondering how many times we get those flashbacks for characters outside of the Straw Hats.
That's a good point too, actually. I can't tell you when.
I can't think of that many examples.
Comment sections can plug us though, probably, but still, at the same time,
the Law is a very integral character, close to the hip of the Straw Hats, like
exactly.
You said.
It feels weird.
At the end of the day, even he has stated, like, I'm not your homie.
Right.
This is convenience.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. But it's
sense.
just a very awkward situation to me, and obviously we can talk about it a little bit more when we actually get to the awakening scene of the chapter. But there's all this Kinemon shit going on, in the meantime, that we also have to talk about, because I don't think I like the Kinemon stuff either. Not the fact that he's not dead. I don't really care characters like die or not in One Piece at this point. Like, that's not really what it's about. But like the explanation as to why this phenomena is happening the way that it is feels really clunky to me. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, Kaido hit you with an attack that should have killed you. Whatever, you survived because it's One Piece. But the explanation that like Law just didn't properly reattach me the way that he normally does people, and I've been running from Punk Hazard to Wano, 4 arcs of storytelling that I've been with these people, and like that's always been a thing in ways that has never been represented until right now, feels super clunky to me, and I don't know if I like that either.
I thought it was funny. I don't know.
It's funny. It's definitely funny.
If somebody was getting mad at me for my reaction to it during my stream, that I wasn't like upset about it, and that I was like offering justifications for it, like
they're like, why are you defending
this? The fact that I don't think we ever got a scene of Law actually using his ability to even put him back together, period. Sure. I think they just like clapped him back together and were like, you're good, right?
Sure.
Cool. You know what I'm saying?
I've got a lot of things to focus on. Like, it's just like,
his parts are still separate.
Now, if that is something that like
why is he not bouncing around?
Yeah. If we can go back, okay. So like, here's a couple questions that I have for that, right? So if it was just a ragtag effort, between the characters involved to reattach Kinemon, and they just go, this part goes here. There's no ope no me interaction, and we just connected parts together. Yeah. Then yes, you have to ask the question of like, why isn't he bouncing around and sliding off and like not properly, like being a whole person? You know what I mean? Because if Law is integral to the refusing of your body in a way that makes it whole again, then why would you just picking the part up and placing it on top of the pelvis mean that like you're back together again enough to seem like you're whole even a little bit?
Because I think if I remember correctly, weren't his legs like somewhat firmly attached to the Punk Hazard dragon to where they had to pull him off? Something like that.
Oh yeah,
it'll give you a little bit of a hold, but if you want like a real like,
then he has to.
You're saying then Law has to do it himself.
Sure. Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if
let us know, man.
Like his legs were kind of stuck on the dragon, and they had to pull him off.
I don't know.
Whoever be out here like fine tooth combing the series and like double checking for like consistency in reviews and analysis. Like I know that there's like commenters out there, that be jumping from like YouTube account to YouTube account to make sure that they know what they're talking about. We got plenty of them in our comment sections. Please, any of the people that do this for One Piece, like let us know if this is like an established thing with more credibility behind it than just the idea that Law didn't reconnect Law properly for some
Law
reason.
Just doesn't give a shit about
Kinemon.
Like, you're good. I'm out of here. I'm dying.
If there are more examples in the narrative that support this explanation of Kinemon's existence in this point of the story, like let us know. But yeah.
I thought it was pretty good slapstick. I also liked the fact that Hamlet is just hanging out, passed the fuck out with a giraffe growing out of his back like a stupid palm tree.
Yeah.
Right.
Love that. I thought the Kanjuro Orochimaru Kazenbo scene was really cool.
Yeah.
Because Kazenbo is like an actual like established yokai.
Yeah.
It basically like translates to like bronze before the fire, and basically this imperial family was like losing like a civil war fight, maybe in the Sugeko area. I don't remember exactly. But their whole thing is that basically there's a place called Mount Toribe, and the people basically cremated themselves to try to achieve Buddhahood and like achieve enlightenment, even though they were like failing at things, and they're just like, hey,
Like
you know, our
live
life
cremated themselves,
like they burnt themselves.
okay, consciously
Yeah.
burned, like not
Oh, let's
like
see. I found another thing I was looking
like
at.
what's that? Like what? Isn't there like
It's
a famous example of someone like lighting themselves on fire for protest?
yes,
That's
yes,
what you're
that's a
talking
more
about?
recent thing in the early 90s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I found the article, and it's basically says powerful members of imperial family, nobility were buried in Mount Toribeyama. At the end of the 10th century, venerable monks reportedly burned themselves to death, hoping to attain Funchi Ojo, which is basically the way to become Buddha after death. Um, and then there's like among the people that try to do it, they failed and did not achieve peaceful deaths. Shocking, being burnt alive.
Yeah.
And they, you know, remained on the earth as fiery, mysterious apparitions attached to life. Um, the yokai is often portrayed as a beggar bones who's engulfed by flames and smoke.
Okay.
And that is Kazanbo. And I was just like, ah, that is a throwback. Like,
Yeah.
great reference. I mean, I'm just a slut for
Yeah.
supernatural references.
For sure, for sure. That's really cool, man.
And like, I just like the idea that he's like, because like they're like, if you touch it, you literally light on fire, and I'm just like, yeah, dying breath for the revenge of the Kurozumi. Let's go. I have died. I still have bitterness. I'm gonna unleash a vengeful spirit with my death. You know, it's a literal Pyrrhic victory,
right?
where you defeated me, but I'm gonna take you all with me, kind of thing. And I'm just like, yeah, that's petty. I like that. That's a good failing villain.
The reuse of Kanjuro is like really annoying to a lot of people. I totally understand.
Really?
It kind of like falls in line with the history of One Piece though. Like, you know, annoying characters come back over and over again and kind of keep annoying you until they're finally put out or whatever. But just the sheer number of times that Kanjuro has been killed and came back in this particular stretch of storytelling, I feel like has kind of upset a lot of people. I feel like
Maybe
it's kind of par for the
death.
course for One Piece. And maybe there are examples in One Piece of, you know, an antagonistic character doing this already in the, you know, in a similar fashion just as many times inside of One Piece.
I mean,
I can't really remember it.
Be kind of like because I know that Orochimaru comes back to life after getting beheaded, and he survived. We know that they had interaction with a hag who had supernatural magic.
Yeah, I think Orochi
got training as like a ninja, so like magic plus ninjutsu. Like I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that like he's faked his death and come back over and over again. He's just like, yeah, you thought it was the end of me. You're not even in the second act.
Yeah, and I think Orochi has come back like the same number of times as Kanjuro, even. You know what I mean? So, you know.
I mean, he just got yacked on the once and then came back.
No, because I think that he lost.
Kaido chopped his head off.
Oh yeah, Orochi. Yeah, Orochi has come back twice from, you know, seemingly final defeats. Absolutely, but Kanjuro, I'm thinking, has the same number of reappearances after defeats as Orochi. Is kind of the point that I'm getting at right now, right? Because it's like Orochi's definitely been dispatched twice in drastic ways in front of us. And then Kanjuro loses to Kiku, and we think he's dead right there. And then when does he lose again? Doesn't he lose, like, in the initial traitor reveal versus Kinemon and, like, the retainers
he
that are
definitely
there?
gets cut down by the scabbards, right?
I can't remember exactly, but...
He flies away on the bird.
Oh, yeah. He flies away on the bird.
The ink bird, he pulled a
Yeah, he flies away on the bird. So then,
out.
like, who originally cuts him down, then? Like, somebody else besides Kiku dealt a finishing blow to Kanjuro. I think actually his defeat after Kiku has been faked like multiple times, because Kiku cuts him down and then we think he's dead. Then he comes back to life to kill Shutenmaru, Ashura Doji, burger fats swordsman is what we've called him historically in this review. So then like he comes back and like fucks him up again. Then he's like, I got you Tenmaru at least. And then comes back again like for this situation. So I think only one person has legitimately cut him down, and that was Kiku. And then he just like has done more things in between that and him effectively bleeding out, I think is what's going on here.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I think
like,
this was like, as he said, the last. Who knows? I mean, he could come back again, but
I don't know if he'll come back
perform
again.
my final
after.
dance.
Yeah.
I
And,
mean,
like,
the line
seemingly
is...
uses his life force to like paint this, and then he like thuds out as it fucking, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that ghost is Kanjuro now at that point. Like, Kazanbo is the technique, but he is using his life force, use the supernatural magic they got from the hag, and like he has become this thing. Because even Orochimaru on page 12, go light them all up, Kanjuro, blow it all to kingdom come. He could basically goaded and pushed and cajoled him into being, you know, the lit wick to a pile of TNT that like the Okami like Yamato is trying to avoid that happening. And I like that the tension with Apu and X Drake are happening within the base. So now we have like this little microcosm of potential tensions. Like Wano to me really seems like a Guy Ritchie film. You know what I mean?
My God.
Where there's just so many different people chasing different things and getting in each other's way, and you're like, this is absolute madhouse bonkers. And then the dust settles and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
That's how it shook out.
Well, real quick before we move away from like the idea of Kanjuro being Kazenbo at this point, you kind of have to ask a couple of questions here, because we know that like your devil fruit kind of is your devil fruit's power and potency in the moment is kind of tied to your consciousness, right? You have a devil fruit ability that's active at a certain time. As soon as you knock out the person who's controlling it, that effect kind of dissipates. We see that inside of the birdcage with Doflamingo, for example. That was like operating on its own set of rules, entirely separate seeming from like his personal fight with Law and then like Luffy ultimately. And then like as soon as he's knocked out, the birdcage goes away too, even though it's like kind of a separate thing. So like if Kanjuro is Kazenbo, then like are you saying that like Kanjuro is done out of here and the last remnants of his consciousness is existing inside of Kazenbo until this ability dissipates, and then, you know, Kanjuro is definitely out of there? Or are you saying he's still conscious, using all of his power to keep Kazenbo going until, you know, his consciousness is extinguished?
Like he's
you know
like
what I mean?
astrally projecting, like he's projecting outside of his body.
I guess that's the question that I'm asking, like, you, as far
his
as your idea.
consciousness is dying, because like I could definitely see him saying like, I am like using meditation, sending out my consciousness to fuel and pilot this Kazenbo. It's based on my life force. This spell, this form will only burn for as long as I'm alive, is kind of what I'm taking.
Yeah, straight up. I didn't know if that's what you were saying, or if you were saying like Kanjuro burnt out and his body is done, and then the last remaining remnants of his consciousness and will is fueling the Kazenbo right now. And
I
so,
think it'd
like,
be really funny if his body's just laying there and people ignore it because it's another dead body, and someone just comes along and just like, is he dead? I don't know. Stem just to make sure. And then
Kazenbo dies.
Kazenbo dies, and they're just like, what?
Yo, chill. That's
I mean, it's One Piece. I want funny deaths. I love funny deaths.
Yeah, I think that would be a little bit too, because they built up this Kazenbo threat, you know, like rather decently. So I don't think that they would take it down comedically. You know what I mean? I think that it's very much so just a situation where it's like, this is my last breath, my last ditch effort. The rest of my life force, consciousness, stamina, whatever, is going into the fueling of Kazenbo. I'm laying here withering away like a leaf, and then as soon as I lose my consciousness, Kazenbo is done. But I'm going to try to cause as much damage with Kazenbo until that point. is kind of how I'm
Absolutely.
taking
I
it.
feel like
Yeah.
it's a dying breath. It's the death rattle, right? Like when
Yeah.
people have that stupid inhuman strength as they're dying, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I may be dead, but I'm gonna choke the life out of you, you son
Yeah.
of a bitch.
Yeah, it's kind of
You
like
know,
that
that.
strength that you pull out of yourself when you don't care about pain. You know what I mean? Like you talk about like
Mm-hmm.
zombies and whatnot, like George Romero zombies, and like how they're just, physical shells trying to carry a virus from like one person to one person
Mm-hmm.
because they're trying to just extend the life of the virus naturally. So then inside of those individual, like shells, we have our own innate strength that we don't even tap into entirely because of pain. Pain stops us from
Mm-hmm.
grabbing something as hard as we possibly can, punching something as hard as we possibly can, whether we're in the moment or not. We just can't access all of that. But zombies don't have that like personal limiter in that way because they're just, a virus with a human shell, so it can clearly just it can use all of its strength to get you. You know what I mean? And that's like a major reason on why zombies are so scary in George
Yeah.
Romero's kind of representation of them or rendition of them. But
Huh.
yeah,
You know, Kazenbo just being like this ghostly fire thing and traveling through. Yamato's like zoanthrope form is like that mythical white wolf, and if I recall, like the Okami PS2 game, that white wolf has domain over fire.
oh damn, yeah, I think
So I
that might
feel
be
like
right. I
if
remember Okami too.
she's going to be like the specific reason why Kazenbo doesn't manage to blow things up. Um, X-Drake and Apu Apu are going to be there for the uncertainty factor, plus Cypher Pole, trying to make sure that bad things do happen.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's going to be a nice segue to like utilize as a segue between the major fights that are
I
still
love
going
the
on.
idea that everybody that's had a fight so far is going to potentially have another fight inside of Cypher Pole members before the end of this, because it's like we're anticipating the crazy 1v1 conflict between the characters that we know and love in the Straw Hats versus the opposition that is the antagonist of Wano Kuni. But like, how do you up the stakes that much further by giving them another crazy fight right after we think they're done fighting for the arc? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when there's multiple
Um,
antagonistic forces at play, and we're only really focusing on like one area of them for like the major fights that our characters are going to go through, introducing like, hey, Cypher Pole's here, and you got a Rob Lucci to deal with. You've got like, whatever the Cypher Pole Zero equivalent of Kaku, Jabra, and Khalifa are that are also here. Who's going to fight them? Everybody seems to be on their last legs. This is pretty crazy. It's not too outside of the realm of One Piece to introduce stakes in that way. You know what I mean? And have its characters that seem spent from the fights that they just had have to overcome another full power hurdle to then kind of add that much to their conviction. You know what I mean? Like Zoro was fighting at like 40% for like all of pre-time skip. You know what I mean? So like we're
yeah.
used to this kind of situation. Like characters fight, at not full capacity all the time in One Piece. So
Because that's
it's not,
exhausting.
yeah, exactly. And it like adds to like the what are they going to do? How is this going to conclude factor of any given conflict when someone is fighting at like 20, 30, 40% strength. Moral
Yeah.
McNarthy in Hunter x Hunter went into the Chimera Ant invasion at like 40% capability. You know what I mean? Like that automatically
Yeah.
added a layer of tension to his storytelling because you knew that. You know what I mean? So if Oda's not going to kill people inside of a war, you know what I mean? Which isn't all that big of a deal. Like you look at Marineford, only like 2 real characters died, and they didn't die till the very end. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I
like
don't know,
nobody
because
dying up until this
I
point
think
isn't a big deal, you know what I mean? But still, like
I think with Wano, they have such an emphasis on like the horrors of war and like the
yeah,
multifaceted ways that any war or warlord can affect a region.
sure,
Um, I think that by introducing Cypher Pull immediately afterwards, you create a different sort of game of tension, right? Like the
sure.
tension is avoiding Cypher Pull, hiding within the ruins, hiding amongst the dead bodies to like not be noticed, and then escape when like attention is diverted elsewhere in the chaos as everything settles, as the smoke begins to diminish. Like I could see a lot of tension being done that where they're like, okay, we won, we technically won, but we're not out of the gates yet. We still need to walk away alive. Like
Yeah.
Apu Apu. he's doing the amateur thing. He's like, but he's smart. Even for an amateur, he's just like, hey man, let's get them while they're down. Cypher Pole's like the professionals, working man's professional version of what Apu Apu is doing.
And you also just introduced another like pretty interesting question about like how this arc kind of operates versus Marineford. It's like Marineford was a location where both sides understood exactly what was about to happen to them, and all of the characters involved were all kind of working towards like the same understanding of the situation and goal, you know, for their respective factions. You have the Navy and the admirals and their foot soldiers all lined up anticipating a war from the pirate side of things, and vice versa. You bring that scale of conflict over to a story like Wano, and now you have to incorporate ground level civilian outlook inside of that faction versus faction war effort. You know what I mean? So there's wildly different storytelling that has to happen in this kind of situation versus a situation like Marineford. But like, there's also just so much more nuance inside of the actual action aspect of it as well, because so many plot points kind of point back towards that civilian perspective inside of multiple like main stage characters that are involved here. So like it is a drastically different arc to Marineford, regardless of how the lengths that people will go to compare them. And there's just a lot more that you have to consider when you're comparing them, is basically the point that I'm making.
Yeah, because it's like to me it doesn't seem fair, because I feel like Wano is such a massive undertaking. Like it is absolutely a challenge. Where even like you and I and Eagle were all pretty satisfied with a lot of Oda's decisions, and we trust Oda a lot to make those decisions. But even with like such a massive undertaking, there's moments where we're just like, hey, where did Trafalgar Law get his, awakening
this
power?
is the first time in our reviews where I'm like generally just disappointed with the
like
chapter
the thing is
overall.
like there's gotta be moments of slip up because of just like how daunting a challenge this is to portray, because of all the moving parts, because of all the nuance, because of just the sheer amount of characters involved. Like it's like, I know we had a conversation a while back about Game of Thrones and how people botched the ending and they rushed it and tried to compress too much in too little time. And like Oda's trying to avoid that kind of problem. And this is how we're seeing it actually unfold. And so like I'm really impressed in spite of sometimes my straight up just confusion.
Sure.
I'm just
I'm overall impressed entirely.
I'm just like, bro, what?
Yeah,
but Marineford seems so clear cut and dry in comparison.
Yeah. And I just want to say that when it comes to like the overall like grand scheme of One Piece, like wildly impressive series, there isn't too many complaints that I've made about it, like just in general, as far as like raw points of like, uncomfort or, uninterest or just disappointment. I don't have very many moments that I can speak of throughout the entire like 25-ish year run of the story. You know what I mean? And so like overall, absolutely, like Oda has kind of fired on all cylinders in all of the ways that matter to me throughout the course of the series. This is just the first chapter that I can think of in like ever where the only thing that I really cared about or really liked about a chapter was all the really subtle in between the lines things that like are definitely away from the major beats of the chapter's storytelling, which I would say are the Kinemon storytelling and the law and the law and kid storytelling. Like those are the two major points of this chapter. And like I said at the beginning, One Piece is a story where there's a whole lot of moving parts in every chapter, especially when we're in a stretch of storytelling like we're in right now. So is it really affecting my overall score of One Piece just because I think a couple of things are like weird or like poorly put together in the last however many chapters? Not really. Wano on a week-to-week level is like the least excited. If I really think about it, it's the least excited that I've been for a One Piece arc in a while. Like, or at least maybe not the least excited, because I'm definitely very excited about what's happening in Wano, but just the most things that I've actually sat back and gone, I don't know how I really feel about this. Like that's happened the most times in my like week-to-week reading of Wano. I can't wait till it's finished so I can like really go back like I usually do on One
And
Piece
really
arcs and
digest
just
it, yeah.
read the whole thing on a binge, not just for the second go through, but also just to see the story unfold in ways that I don't have to wait for and just see how that kind of
Yeah.
feels. You know what I mean? I always do that with One Piece arcs, but like, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just happy that that we're able to kind of discuss these things in an environment that, isn't like inviting toxicity, like a lot of the
Yeah.
conversations that surrounding One Piece narrative decisions
man.
kind of end
It's
up being,
really
right?
hard to sometimes. Like,
Most of the
Yeah.
conversations about this topic is probably just gonna be like, "No, this fucking chapter's trash. Fuck Oda. He's garbage.
Yeah, just like
He never
arguing
kills
about
anybody.
like
He's such a pussy."
yeah, like shit like that. You know what I mean? Like you see a lot of that kind of discourse where
he'll
it's
touch on slave
basically
labor, but won't kill off characters. What a pussy.
yeah, just arguing about, like whether or not it's trash and like the why kind of seems to
That's
get
so
lost
subjective, though.
but like it's all about the why, right? Like you're trying to get to the bottom of something, and like inside of a lot of One Piece discussion communities, I feel like the overall purpose of the discussion gets lost to the personalities at hand and how aggressive they're being, or just regular like stream argument shit that flies off the rails in ways that people couldn't possibly predict or plan for. You know what I mean? Like it always eventually just comes down to that famous bowl of potential toxic avenues that a conversation can take that ends up just sweeping the entire conversation into like a whirlwind of like, what are we really talking about at this point? You know what I mean?
And
Like,
has a conversation been taken out of context? Because
right.
one of my buddies a while back was talking shit about this kind of joke or something like that, and I was like, hey man, I love you, and I know you're joking, but the people around us at this like anime convention don't know you, so they can't tell if you are joking,
Right.
and you're gonna piss off a lot of motherfuckers tonight if you're gonna keep up this shit. Like,
a lot of people lose the point of the the original point of the
the
arguments or the conversation that that they're trying to have, and I feel like that makes it hard to like really view One Piece community arguments in the light that you probably need to, because at the end of the day we are trying to find out like the reason why Oda is making these decisions. We're trying to get as far inside of his head as possible, and once a lot of people like come to the conclusion that they come to about why decisions are made, whether there's an actual reason for it or whether you've just resigned to the idea that this person just doesn't know what they're doing anymore and they're just writing anything in their story, regardless of what conclusion you come to, people take those conclusions and assumptions and decisions as far as how they feel about the direction of the storytelling, and they turn it into armor and weapons and really dig their heels in and fight to the death to defend those takes, and it just makes the conversation so convoluted and crazy that you don't even remember like what the argument is a lot of the time.
Absolutely.
And my point is that it doesn't really happen here on this show like that, and I'm thankful
really
for
doesn't.
that. Yeah,
because like a Black Clover thing, they're like, Mello is going for alternate timeline Julius. All right, fair enough. And it's like, am I gonna be proven wrong? Probably, but I'm having fun. So.
Fuck it, it's about the conversation, not like us dying on the hill of our initial stances.
I've walked a lot of hills. Got a lot more sights to see. I'm a rambling man. Let's go. Man.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to talk about The Awakening. We have to go back to The Awakening real quick. This is the last thing I have to say about the chapter. I love the application of Law's Awakening versus Kid's Awakening, because as far as like our understanding of how Awakening kind of works inside of the series historically, at least from what I can remember, Awakening, as far as what people's, perception of how it works, falls a lot more in line with the application of Kid's Awakening than Law's Awakening. And I like how Oda is showing, kind of like different sides of the spectrum inside of this concept, because like the awakening of the Zoan users inside of Impel Down is like, whatever. That's like always like a weird conversation. But like inside of like Doflamingo, for example, Everwhite and all of those new abilities that we saw once we knew that he was using the awakening side of his devil fruit. It's like it kind of fit inside of a certain pattern that we've been trying to kind of apply to other devil fruits that we've seen inside of the series, because it's like an environmental area of effect kind of application usually, you know what I mean? Or at least that's the conversation that I see happening a lot of the time. And that makes sense for, you know, Law, who controls, you know, a force of nature the way that he does. It makes sense to see the awakened version of this behaving very Magneto-esque, you know what I mean? Like, I can choose a point in space that has, you know, a certain polarity attraction that makes, you know, things, you know, repel from it or, you know, attract towards it. Like, that is totally, that makes all the sense in the world as an environmental buff to your power. And then Law, for example, is a very personal, localized application of the extension of his devil fruits concept.
I loved the anesthesia.
Yes, dude. Like, it's
That
just
was
so
so
cool
cool.
seeing them back to back like that.
You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was blowing my nose. It's the antithesis of the actual devil fruits functionality, where like kids is largely AoE based. I don't know. It's both of their abilities really are largely AoE based.
Right.
So the awakening application is more singularity as opposed to
concentrated
an ability like Doflamingo's, where it's like the awakening is AoE based as opposed to the actual abilities of the devil fruit being more concentrated.
Sure.
This is the opposite of that. Like,
you see,
I've
like,
always wondered what Law's awakening could be based on the fact that his ability is already like really
such a
AoE.
huge area of effect, right?
And so it makes sense that it's localized, pinpoint, internal damage, even more so than like
Gamma Knife or something.
Gamma Knife, Counter Shock,
Yeah. And then
I love the anesthesia ghost blade thing. That's so cool. Like, and also really fucking funny because he hits Big Mom with an electrified wet willy with a sword.
Yeah. But no, dude, like going back to like what you were saying about Kid though, Eagle, like Kid, I feel like as far as like what we've seen as for the capabilities of his power has always been kind of related to himself. You know, magnetism in relation to him and where he is on the battlefield. Things attract towards him and he makes things come, you know what I mean? So his awakening being things that can apply, you know, that magnetic effect to external factors makes a lot of sense, you know, for him as far as like an opposite effect. Like you were saying with Law having, you know, dominion over a giant area of effect, and then his awakening being the opposite in regard to localizing it. That just makes all the sense in the world. So I'm glad that you kind of like broke it down like that.
Yeah, no. I like that a lot. And it's just a cool thing where it's just like, you're magnetic now. That's your problem. I'm out.
Yeah.
Terrain does the work.
Yeah.
So good.
I'm excited to see what kind of damage that this did to Big Mom, right? Because like we know that Law's shit was drastic because it's internal damage. She's bleeding from the mouth. We've never seen Big Mom like look like she's taken this much damage before.
Really
so like that's major for Law. But like what did Kid really do? Because like even though he's like assigning, you know, a magnetic force around Big Mom or inside of Big Mom that's attracting all of this metal and debris to her, it's like what is that really doing? Like that's entirely external. And her durability should just deal with that, no problem. I want to say.
I mean,
like, but now she's got to drag around a bunch of metal. And shit.
Now she, and okay, so Law is actually doing damage, and Kid is just slowing her momentum.
Her,
now she's magnetically attached to all these heavy ass beams, and she's like,
that's cool.
And, you know, she's strong as fuck.
Spirits are magnetized to her too, because they're like, hey, I'm attached to Big Mom. Because she does.
Oh, that. Napoleon said that, but Napoleon is a spirit inside of a physically like metal thing though.
Yeah.
So like if we saw like every brutal. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, because in that panel, does it look like Prometheus is like squished against her?
Yeah, I think that both her.
Oh wow!
All her spirits, so her mobility is cut to death. Is Prometheus strong enough to lug around Big Mom and all those motherfucking beams.
Oh wow, I don't know, dude. That's crazy. If like
A fireball
non-metal like things are also being attracted to them. I didn't even like think about
it's
that.
an extension of oneself. He made Big Mom and her
Oh.
entirety magnetic, and so her power being part of herself, because she shares
her soul
like,
with
spirit
her
with
homies.
object. So it's all her.
Yo.
But also, I think it'd be really funny if Prometheus got skewered by a bunch of steel beams, but that's a little dark. But it's
I'm
One Piece,
wondering,
so
like,
it could be.
they look
hell
like
no.
that also in the shock. Ow, you bitch! Oh, they look like that in the. They look like that also in the Shock Willet panel.
Did your cat
What
use some
page?
steel beams on you?
She fucking got my thigh, man.
Magnetized with claws.
Yeah. So they look like this in the Shock Willet panel also. Where
What
they're
page,
kind of
though?
squished. 16, top of 6. This is a double spread, but top
Okay.
right panel on 16 and 17. The Shock Willet panel. Where he
I feel
hits
like
her
it's a
with the
combo
ability.
attack. They did it at the same time, you know, like they're
Oh yeah,
assigning-
I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Sword Willy.
Okay.
Shock Willy, boom.
Oh
but
no.
I feel-
Yeah, that's the Shock Willy effect. Shock Willy. Right on the bottom of
Yeah.
16, when we're like wondering if
Why
know,
they're all smushed
why
like
they're
that.
all smushed like that. I think it's just a reverberation of the soul damage, quote unquote, I guess is what I'll say. That Law's, you know, awakened fruit is having on the essence of Big Mom, like internally, including where her soul stretches to.
I thought it was
guess.
both.
Maybe, yeah,
I
it
thought
could be
was
both.
Then,
Could be
because,
both.
like, because you can see Kid
Oh yeah,
in the foreground of that Shock Willy,
yeah,
where
that's
they're
right.
going, "Whoa," and he's like the shock is going out, and then he's already assigning
that's
that
right.
magnetism.
That's right.
So they're even though they're exploding, they're not going apart or anything. The explosion's
Oh,
contained by
sure.
its own magnetism.
That's yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Like that's how I read it.
But that's really cool.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like, I cannot wait for the next chapter of One Piece. Is it on break? Does it say? Or is there no break in between this chapter and the next chapter?
I'm not sure.
I really want to see if they stay
Next
on this.
chapter-
Yeah, if they stay on this perspective, I'm like super excited for that for the next.
New chapter coming in 6 days.
Okay. Yep.
Nice.
All right,
But
bet.
that's why I want to like you said earlier. I don't like judging arcs until they're done, because
Sure.
there's been like there was points where I was just like, there's just been arcs where I'm just like, I don't even know. Like the Cake Island thing, I was just like, I don't even know, bro. Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. Like
Yeah.
when Caesar was introduced, or like Impel Down, I was like, okay, where is this
Yeah.
arc going,
Right.
right? And I was like, I feel like there's a lot of action going on. It's cool, but it wasn't satisfying to me until
Until it finished.
Impel Down wrapped up,
Yeah.
right? I was like, and then it was like, oh, as a whole, this is actually quite moving.
And
Like,
it comes down to your trust in the author, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
it's like week to week criticism. It's just as valid as like binge criticism. You know what I mean? Because it's like at the end of the day, like sure, it's gonna feel better if you analyze something when you have the full scope and the full picture of it, because then you can go through and say like anything that feels weird over here is fixed up over here by the end of the arc potentially. You can do things like that. Like you can look at the
yeah,
whole
but how
thing.
you get there too is
Yeah,
also
yeah.
really
You can look at the whole picture and then decide on things, and it feels a lot better. But like week to week is the quickest that we can get this. So what are we supposed to do? Just not have any issues ever until the
Hey,
arc
we're
is
gonna do
over.
a One Piece
Like,
video in like
Yeah,
6
like-
months with this arc.
yeah, you know, you just you know, look at the content that you have in front of you, assume the things you're going to assume about it, analyze it the way you're going to analyze it, come to the conclusions that you're going to come to, and then you're either the kind of person that will make the statements that you make and then come back later and go, I was mistaken, we have new information that made this take invalid, so I take that back. You're either that kind of person, or you're the kind of person that'll never address it again and try to sweep it under the rug.
This is my hill I'm gonna
Yeah,
die
like,
on, and
they-
hopefully you won't find this hill.
There are plenty of, you know, people that I've seen go, this shit is ass and there's nothing that the writer can do to fix it. And then like they totally fix it like
I've
15
waited on
chapters
tables
later.
like that.
And then
Like,
like they just never go back and say like, oops, my bad. Like, I jumped the gun. You know what I mean? Like you're either the kind of person that will do that or the kind of person that won't. But regardless of what kind of person you are, week-to-week criticism and binge criticism is equally valid, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's all I had for One Piece this week, I think.
Man, we've been in Wano for
so long.
We've been in Wano for 120 chapters. 2 years.
That's insane.
Oh man,
That's insane.
Wow.
Yeah, 910 was the first chapter when they got to the waterfall.
We have been in Wano since before we started this show. Period.
That's wild.
Yeah, like
wild.
We were already multiple chapters into Wano before Project Mongo was officially formed.
Oh my god, yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I think Wano's been going on for about as long as I've known you guys.
Yeah, and we're coming up on our 100th weekly Shonen Jump review. Like in the next 1 to 3 reviews, we will have done our 100th weekly Shonen Jump issue talk. Right, so that's
it was about 20 chapters in, something like that.
Yeah,
20,
so
25.
yeah, that span of time is already like just 2 years by itself, basically. Yeah, so it's like, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
I went to school for things shorter than
Yeah, for real. Wow. Oh yeah, man.
I think that's about all I had
for a shorter amount of time, and that was like 2 years.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
For the straight shot, and I was like, "What the?"
Yeah, I'm good on One Piece. Yeah. Take us in.
I think that'll do it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did, be sure to slap a like on this video, like I said before. Be sure to slap a sub on the motherfucking channel, like I said before. We release fire content week to week. And, as we said before, go ahead and take a look in that description box down below, where you can find links to any and all of our individual social media accounts, such as Twitter, online communities such as Discord, places to listen to the podcast wherever you normally would, as well as links to support the podcast through our Patreon or our online store. And with all those words said, this will be another incredible episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Wrapping up, I'm your host, Eagle.
Knox.
Bella Yanis.
Peace!